You know, Meat Shields, Final Destination is one of those iconic series where every movie in the franchise is honestly a banger. And whether it's a plane crash, a deadly roller coaster, or a good old giant log truck, I got a plan for surviving them all. So if you and your friends accidentally rage baited the Grim Reaper, what would you do? Well, today we're locking in for a special marathon episode covering every insane death in the entire series. So I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat death in every Final Destination. Our story starts one ordinary night at your average house in the burbs. That's where we meet this kid Alex, who's getting ready for a big trip to Paris with some of his homies from class. But the thing you gotta know about Alex is he's a little superstitious. So at the airport, he starts noticing all these weird coincidences, like the departure time is the same as his birthday, and there's this song by John Denver on the radio who died in a freaking plane crash. Weird, but it's probably nothing. So they all hop on the plane and Alex trades seats with a couple girls so that they can all sit together. But as soon as the plane takes off, things start getting a little bumpy until suddenly, bang, the whole plane starts going sideways. And the next thing they know, a huge fire breaks out, going all the way around the plane until it blows a hole right in the side. The last thing Alex sees is a giant fireball burning everyone to a crisp. But then all of a sudden, he wakes back up on the plane. Phew, guess it was just a dream. But that's when things start getting even weirder, because the same girls come up asking him to trade seats, and when he opens the little tray, it breaks, just like in his dream. Well, that's all my boy Alex needs to see, so he starts flipping out, going, this plane is gonna explode. But then this dude Carter just gets up and slugs him for no reason, and they all end up getting kicked off the plane. So they're sitting around waiting for the next flight, with everybody just looking at Alex like he's crazy, but then off in the distance, kablam! The whole plane actually just explodes, so it looks like Alex was right after all. Alright, yeah, this is definitely tragic, but if I'm Alex, forget Paris, I'm going straight to Vegas, baby, because this might be the luckiest day of my life. The truth is, your chances of being in a plane accident are literally less than 1 in a million, and even then, most of them end up landing safely, so you still have like a 98% chance of survival, but it's the other 2% that makes me low-key start sweating every time we hit that turbulence. And it got me thinking, if I was ever in a serious plane crash, is there any chance that I would actually survive? Well, it's not going to be easy, but I always have a plan, so the first thing I'm thinking about is my seat choice. Because I looked up the stats, alright, and it turns out that that can actually make a difference. In major accidents, there were always more survivors in the back third of the plane, you know, the cheap seats. The back middle seats usually had the best survival rate, while aisle seats in the middle of the plane always did the worst. But that's just for the crash, because remember, even if I survive the impact, I still have to get off the plane before the fire takes me out, which also means that I want to be close to an exit. To get real specific, this plane was a Boeing 747, so I pulled up the seat chart to take a look, and bingo, there is 2 emergency exits right near the back. So I'm either picking seat E or F row, 41 to 45, and then I'll be set. Now, I could go online and pick up a used parachute for around 5,000 V-bucks and just Tom Cruise my way out of there as the plane was going down, but in this economy, I think we all know that's not really realistic, so it looks like I'll have to survive the old-fashioned way. Like, first, I'm putting on the oxygen mask, and that way I don't pass out. Then I'm hitting the good old brace position, meaning feet flat, heads down, arms to the side. That's gonna stop me from getting whipped around during the crash. But even if I do survive, it's not over yet, because I only have around a minute to get out of there before it all burns to a crisp. So as soon as it stops, I'm ditching my suitcase, staying low to avoid the smoke, and getting to an exit as fast as I can. Then all I gotta do is get clear of the area before another explosion goes off, and I'm good. Honestly though, if the plane just explodes in a giant fireball mid-flight, there's no way I'm surviving that, even if I have a plan, which is why they were mad lucky that Alex had this vision, or at least they would be, but death, he ain't about to let that slide. Well, now everyone is suspicious that Alex actually had something to do with it, so it isn't long before he gets pulled in for some questioning by the FBI. And no lie, these guys' names are Weenie and Shrek. Yep, just Weenie and Shrek out here, solving the case. They want to know how the hell Alex knew that the plane was about to go down, so Alex says that he basically just saw it in a vision. But they've got some problems with his story, because right before it happened, he said that he wished Carter was still on the plane. Well, Alex didn't exactly think the plane was going to explode, but the feds are like, well, if that's true, then how come you got off? And honestly, it's a valid point, but it's not enough to lock him up, so for now it looks like he's off the hook, at least with the feds anyway. But when it comes to the Grim Reaper, now that's a different story. Back at the casa, our boy is up late watching the news, and sure enough, it looks like there were no survivors. So as messed up as it is, it seems like he kinda got off lucky, right? But then a huge lightning bolt strikes right in front of the house, and for a superstitious guy like Alex, that definitely feels like a message. So a little over a month goes by and we catch up with Alex at a big memorial for all their classmates. Everyone is still pretty freaked out by what happened, and even their teacher, Miss Luton, wants nothing to do with him. But this one chick, Clear, actually thanks him for saving her life, so at least somebody doesn't think he's crazy. Later that night, we catch up with Alex's best friend Todd, whose brother George got smoked in the accident. He was supposed to be on the plane too, but he got off when Alex started flipping out. And what he doesn't realize is death is about to catch up. He's looking in the mirror when he notices the wind blowing through the window, but when he goes over to shut it, the breeze closes the bathroom door. Then he sits down to use the restroom, and while he's busy taking the Browns to the Super Bowl, the pipe starts leaking water all over the floor. After that, my boy decides that it's time for a shave, but ouch! He ends up giving himself a little nick. But it's cool, you know, nothing major. And now it's time for some tunes. So he plugs in the radio and what the? It's freaking John Denver! So on second thought, maybe no music for now. Meanwhile, Alex is back at the crib doing some research when out of nowhere, an owl lands on his window, so he chucks the magazine at it like, "Get out of here, bird," but it ends up going straight into the fan. And when he picks up one piece that just so happened to land in his lap, what else does it say but T-O-D? All of a sudden, Todd finally slips on the toilet water, making him crash straight into the tub with the clothesline wrapped around his neck. He starts getting to his feet, but the soap is making the ground all slippery. And since his dad is passed out downstairs, there's no one to hear him thrashing around. That's when he notices a pair of scissors right next to the sink and starts reaching over to try and grab them, but he can't do it, and Todd finally hits 0 HP. And the water just disappears back into the pipes, making one down, with 6 more to go. Alright, I don't know if we need to call a plumber or the damn Ghostbusters, so maybe they should just summon my dude Luigi and he'll crack the case. But it looks like the Grim Reaper just decided to spin the block, so if death is still coming after them, what are they gonna do? Well, the main problem for my guy Todd was he had no reason to expect this might happen, so even though there were a couple of warning signs he might have noticed if he was being paranoid, it makes sense that he wasn't expecting death to just show up and put him on a t-shirt. But with that being said, I still have a plan to survive this one, so let's say I just slipped in the water and ended up stuck like my boy Todd. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is reach behind me, plug the drain, turn on the water, then I'm gonna plant my arms on the side of the tub and start pushing my body up like a tricep dip. And what that's gonna do is take the pressure off of my neck and buy me some time as water fills up the tub. But that's where the plan gets good, because filling up the tub is going to help me in 2 ways. First, once the water gets high enough, my body's going to start to float, and with the water holding most of my weight up, that should give me more time. But also, if the water overflows and starts dripping downstairs, someone might actually notice and come running to help. Now, once the water reaches high enough, I should be able to swing my legs out until I'm just sitting on the side of the tub, and then from there, I can either reach up and try to pull the line off the wall, or just reach for those scissors to cut it, and I'm Gucci. Now, as for Alex, at this point, he's got to realize these aren't just consequences. And it's not just Todd's name coming up that was weird. In ancient Rome and medieval Europe, owls were seen as a sign of death and disaster, but in ancient Greece, they actually represented wisdom and hidden knowledge. So either way you look at it, one thing is for sure, for whatever reason, the universe is trying to send him signs. So all he has to do is pay attention whenever destiny sends him a message, and he'll know that he's about to get packed up next. Anyway, when it comes to Todd, Alex probably should have just called his house instead of running there on foot, because then somebody might have actually been able to save him. But now, all he can really do is wait for another sign and try to warn whoever's next before death catches them lacking. Well, Alex gets the feeling that something's bad is about to happen, so he books it over to Todd's place to see what's good, but by the time he gets there, it's already too late, and all he sees are the paramedics taking his buddy out on a stretcher. They all think it was a non-accidental death, if you know what I mean, even though Alex thinks that there's more to the story, but Todd's pops just turns around and walks away, because what other explanation could there be? The weird thing is, the feds are there as well, and so is that chick Clear from his class. What's she doing here? So the next day, Alex decides to go pay her a visit and find out. He finds Clear welding a sculpture outside her crib. She's the artsy, philosophical type, but Alex just cuts straight to the chase and asks what she was doing at Todd's. Well, the answer is a little out there, but basically she's been having weird feelings ever since the night of the accident. And that's what told her to pull up, so even though everyone else thinks that he's nuts, it seems like Clear actually believes him. But there's a problem, because Alex has been thinking about it, and now he's starting to wonder, what if what happened to Todd was more than just an accident? And what if the same thing happens to them? There's no way to be sure, but he feels like if he could see Todd one more time, that might help. So they decide to head over to the funeral home to see what they could find. So that night they sneak into the place through the skylight and they find their buddy Todd just lying on the slab. Alex is all like, yep, he's toast, but then suddenly, the body jerks its arm and they both jump back like bros about to respawn. That's when this freaky dude randomly steps out of the shadows. It's the mortician, a fella by the name of William Bloodworth, and weirdly enough, it seems like this dude was already expecting them. Clear notices these little scratch marks all over Todd's neck, and Bloodworth explains that they're from pulling on the wire, which can only mean it really was an accident. But like Bloodworth says, in death, there are no accidents. And it all ties back to what happened that night on the plane. You see, according to my guy here, all the choices we make in life are really just a long, drawn-out joke, with death as the ultimate punchline. He calls it death's design. But that gives Alex an idea, because maybe if he could figure out what Death was planning, he can find out a way to stop it, right? Well, not exactly, because as Bloodworth points out, they already cheated Death once before. And it looks like that only made things worse, but hey, at least it's a start, so they leave hoping that they can figure out something before Death strikes again. Alright, well, that was weird, but honestly, I feel like they could have skipped this whole side mission anyway, because I'm sorry, but what was any of this actually supposed to do? It's not like Buddy's just gonna pop up and explain what happened, so unless Alex was planning on doing some Lorraine Warren stuff, you know, like trying to summon Todd's ghost, I really don't see the point. And it wasn't just pointless, it was risky, because if anything, all this did was put them in more danger and give the cops even more reasons to arrest them. But with that being said, this conversation with my guy Bloodworth actually gives me an idea. We know they only cheated Death the first time because of Alex's vision, right? But if he can figure out how to do that again, he could use it to predict the future and save whoever's next. Now, in the world of paranormal activity, the experts would probably call this like some type of precognition, which is basically just a fancy way of saying Alex can see the future. But that's where the plan starts getting good, because real life physics already have a method for how to do this. The key is to cut off the outside world and leave your mind completely blank. Kind of like putting on some noise-canceling headphones, except they're connected to the spirit world. They usually do this by blindfolding themselves and putting on some white noise and then going into a deep meditation until the visions start coming through. And the funny thing is, that's exactly what Alex did back on the plane. I mean, think about it, right? He was already tired from catching a late flight, making it easier for him to drift off. Then as soon as he sat down, he turned on the air conditioning and boom. So you got your white noise and a steady flow of air on his face. That's literally textbook conditions for how to trigger a psychic vision. So basically all they gotta do is recreate those exact conditions and it might happen again. So if I was Alex, then here's what I would do. First, I would make sure I'm pretty tired, just like on the plane. Then I'm going to a quiet room where there's no distractions, turning on a fan pointed at my face and putting on some earmuffs and a blindfold. And once I'm all set up, all I gotta do is wait for another vision and then ring up the person who's gonna die next and warn them and we'll be good. Now, one thing that would make this a lot easier is if they already knew who was gonna be next. So the question they should be asking themselves is, why did Death start with Todd first? They're gonna realize this a little later in the story, but I won't spoil anything for now. But in any situation where you don't know what's gonna happen, one of the best things you can do is start looking for patterns. So besides trying to have another vision, I'd be trying to figure out what order Death was going in. And if we know who, when, and how Death is gonna strike, that should make surviving this a piece of cake. The next morning, Alex and Clear meet up at the coffee shop to talk strategy, but it seems like they don't really even know where to start. Main problem is they have no idea where, when, or how Death is gonna come after them, and for all they know, every little choice they make could lead to the last nail in the coffin. But Alex thinks that Death might be trying to send them signs. He pulls out the magazine scrap with Todd's name on it and tries to show her that as proof, but for whatever reason, now Clear is starting to get all suspicious, and she's like, well, then how do we know what's a sign and what's not? Well, as she's over here telling my boy he's reaching, Alex sees a reflection of a bus in the window, but when he turns around, no bus. That's weird. But you know who does end up driving by? That dude Carter and his girlfriend Terry. Now, after spotting Alex, Carter just whips a U-turn right in the middle of the street, almost taking out this other kid Billy in the process. He pulls up on Alex, probably looking to whoop his ass again, and at the same time, their teacher Miss Luton comes walking out with her coffee. So now the gang is all here, and it turns into this huge argument over who's crazy, and who can see the future and all that. But as for Terry, she's decided that she's ready to move on, so she walks away going, you guys guys drag it if you want. I'm off to live my life to the fullest. But as soon as she sets a foot on the sidewalk, wham! A bus just absolutely blasts her right in front of everybody. And just like that, we have 2 down with 5 more to go. Later that day, Clear tries ringing up Alex to see how he's doing, but my guy says that there's something he's got to figure out first. He's watching another news report on the accident when he notices something strange. The fire that caused the explosion started right under Todd's seat, and that gets him thinking about where everybody else lines up on the map. And what do you know, it matches up exactly to where they should have been sitting. Not only that, but so far the order matches up too. First Todd, now Terry, and then Miss Luton. So if Alex's hunch turns out to be right, it looks like their teacher is probably next. Alright, now we're finally getting somewhere. It's just too bad Terry had to get roadkilled before Alex cracked the code. But the messed up part about it is, Alex easily could have saved her if he wasn't so busy arguing with her psycho boyfriend. Now speaking of this dude Carter, he wasn't doing Terry any favors by speeding around and whipping U's in the middle of traffic. But car accidents are actually the #1 cause of death for people from 15 to 24, so if the bus didn't take her out, my boy's reckless driving definitely would've. But then we've got my guy Alex, and remember, right when those two pulled up, he literally just got done seeing the magic school bus drive by the window. But even if nobody else believed him, he still knew it was a sign, so he easily could have just said something before she walked into the street, right? Like, all he had to do was say, "Terry, look out," or run over and grab her out of the way, and then they wouldn't be picking up the pieces of her off the sidewalk. So if I was Alex, it's time to start taking these visions more seriously and warning people, even if they think I'm nuts. Which brings us to our next problem, because even if he knows Miss Luton's up next, getting her to believe him is a whole different story. She already thinks he's a total wacko, so he can't just ring her up and tell her to look out. And he could try having Clear warn her instead, but even then, it's still gonna sound way too crazy to be true. So what they need is a way to convince her, but don't worry, cause I've got an idea. Now, if I'm Alex, the first thing I gotta do is have another one of these visions so I can figure out Death's plan. But here's where the plan gets interesting, because instead of saying anything too early, I'm taking Clear with me, then hanging out near Miss Luton's place until I know Death is about to strike. Then, right before it happens, we'll both run in, I'll call out exactly what's about to go down, and then I'll save Miss Luton. And after seeing it happen in real time right in front of her, there's no way she can still think I'm full of baloney. I mean, after that, it should be pretty easy to convince everyone else, and then we just keep going down the line, watching out for signs, and saving each other one at a time until we eventually figure out how to make it stop. Now, speaking of Miss Luton, she's back at home packing her bags when, wait a minute, there's that kid Alex snooping around her yard. She's got no idea what he's doing out there, so Miss Luton decides that she better call the feds. But little does she know, that was her biggest mistake. They pull up just a few minutes later to find Alex messing with the teacher's car, and yeah, it does look pretty sus, but he swears that he was just checking the tires. Well, the feds ain't buying it, so they stuff Alex in the back of the whip and take him away for questioning, but as soon as they're gone, that's when Death decides to show up. Over at the station, the agents want to know why Alex's friends keep dropping dead, but Alex keeps insisting that it's just destiny or whatever. And even though they think he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, they still don't have any evidence to hold him, so they end up just having to let him go. Meanwhile, back at Miss Luton's, she decides to put on her mom's favorite record, Rocky Mountain High by John Denver. And by now, we already know what this means, so you can probably guess what's about to happen. Then it's off to fill up the tea kettle when, what the? She notices some kind of weird demonic shadow in the reflection. But nothing's there when she turns around, so anyway, time to fire up the stove. Looks like there's a problem with the burner. No worries, this ginormous match should do the trick. Bingo! Just when she's about to pour herself a cup, gah! The freaking mug has the high school logo on it, and that makes her decide to go for some vodka instead. The only problem is, the mug is already hot, so when she drops a bunch of ice cubes in it, it cracks, and the vodka starts leaking all over the floor. A bunch of it ends up getting on the computer as she goes to wrap up some more stuff, causing it to short out. And noticing it's smoking, she gets up to see what's wrong, but then out of nowhere, bam, the computer just explodes, sending broken glass flying straight into her neck. She stumbles back and pulls it out, but yikes, that's a lot of blood, and as she's going for the phone, the computer bursts into flames, setting the trail of vodka on fire. So just as she makes it to the kitchen, blam! Another explosion goes off, sending her flying across the room. All she can do is reach for a towel to try and stop the bleeding, but nope, she ends up knocking over the kitchen knives, causing the biggest one to fall straight down on top of her. Now it definitely looks like she's donezo, but right at that moment, freaking Alex comes strolling in to find her all smashed up. And he starts trying to help her until the damn stove explodes, knocking over a chair that slams the knife even deeper in. Well, that's a wrap for Miss Luton, and Alex goes running back as the whole place suddenly explodes, but where he bumps into that dude Billy, who just happened to be riding by, and Alex gets up and dips into the woods without even trying to explain, and that makes 3 down with 4 more to go. Alright, Alex, my boy, what have you done? I know he was just trying to help, but in all seriousness, that was the worst rescue attempt that I've ever seen. Well, if the feds didn't have a reason to arrest him before, they sure do now. But first, we gotta talk about Miss Luton over here. Cause to keep it a buck with you, I feel like she easily could have survived. Like right off the bat, I'm approaching this situation completely differently. Cause when Miss Luton saw Alex hanging around outside, her first reaction was to call the feds. And trust me, I get it. But think about it, the kids correctly predicted 3 freak accidents in a row, and that would be hella sus. Except for one thing, we know he didn't make the plane explode, just like he didn't kill his best friend. And he didn't schedule a bus to come through and smack Terry, which can only mean he's genuinely just trying to warn everyone. So instead of ratting him out to the feds, I would have opened the door and been like, bro, what's good? Because clearly if he's hanging around, that's not a good sign for me. So I'd want to hear him out before I jump to any conclusions. But even if she didn't trust Alex, you gotta trust your gut at some point, right? And after not 1, not 2, but 3 1 in a million disasters happen to the exact people I got off the plane with, you better believe I'm not taking any chances. Like as soon as the stove started acting up, nah, tea time is canceled. And if I notice the computer starts sparkling like a freaking time bomb, you think I would actually get closer to check that out? Hell nah, I'm hitting the deck before that thing goes off. So as soon as I noticed anything even remotely suspicious, I'd stop what I was doing, calmly get in the car, and start slowly driving myself to the nearest hospital. That way, I'd already be on my way in case anything happened. Now, to be fair, Alex could have approached this a lot better as well, because like I said, Miss Luton already thought he was a psycho, so he had to know sneaking around her house wasn't going to go over well, but even though he couldn't get there in time to save her, there's still a few things we can learn from what happened. First, it's a small detail, but this is the second time that Alex has heard Rocky Mountain High by John Denver right before some kind of huge catastrophe. And there's no way that was just a coincidence, so if it was me, I would head over to Walmart, pick up a little radio, and just carry it around with me at all times, constantly cycling through all the channels, and anytime I heard my boy John Denver, I would know shit is about to go down. Silent Hill logic, you already know. Also, this proves Alex was right about the order, which means 2 things. He knows whose death's gonna go for next, and he knows that everyone else is safe until then. Like, he has to convince everyone to squat up so that they can watch each other's backs. But 3 out of 4 of them will know that they're safe, so all they have to do is keep an eye out for any signs and try to save the next person when death shows up. And who knows? If they manage to save everyone a second time, maybe that'll break the curse and they can go back to their normal lives. With another person from class randomly dropping dead, the feds go straight to Clear's place looking for Alex, but Clear says that she hasn't seen him. She's back to believing him now that Miss Luton kicked the bucket, but she knows 12 is probably going to be watching, so she rings up Carter and Billy and gets them to drive her instead. The 3 of them head to a park where Clear thinks they might find Alex, and sure enough, there he is. He's been thinking it all over, wondering about the afterlife and stuff. But after a quick pep talk from Clear, he decides to lock in. He can't go home now that the feds are after him, so Clear says that he can stay at her dad's cabin. But now the boys have some questions, and Carter wants to know who's gonna be next. Alex doesn't want to say anything because he thinks that'll only make things worse, but that makes Carter think that it must be him. And suddenly this dude slams on the gas and starts picking up speed. He starts flying through traffic and running stop signs with everybody else trapped in the car, and as they're begging him to chill, daddy, he takes his hands off the wheel and starts flooring it straight towards a giant gas truck. They end up barely missing it by just a couple inches, but this dude Carter's showing no signs of slowing down. While this is happening, Alex sees a vision of a train in the back window. Well, you'll never guess what's around the corner: train tracks. And that's when Carter finally decides to stop. Right on cue, the bell starts ringing, meaning Choo Choo Charles is about to be there any second, so everyone starts getting out of the car, but Carter's all like, nah, I got something to prove here. So he sits there waiting until the train's right on top of them, but goes to start the car at the last second, but guess what? Now it won't start. And when he reaches for the door, the car locks him in. His seatbelt won't come off either, and now bro is really starting to panic, so Alex rushes over and starts trying to pull him out, until finally, boom, the The train absolutely smacks the car into next week. But the good news is, Alex just saved this dude's life. But while everyone's still thinking that Carter is up next, the train kicks up a sharp piece of metal that flies over and cuts Billy's head off, making 4 down with 3 more to go. Shocked, they all start wondering what happened, and Alex realizes that after he saved Carter, Death must have skipped him and moved on to whoever was next. But after Billy, Alex was next in line. And to make matters worse, the cops are going to be there any minute, so they decide that they better dip to the cabin before they get caught. Well, I guess you could say my boy Billy really lost his head in the argument, am I right? They probably should have realized Death doesn't stick to the script, but now they know the order, and they have a guy who can literally see the future. The fact that they just got caught slipping yet again is pretty embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie. So at this point, there's really only one thing I can say. Congratulations, gang, because you done f***ed up. Now, when I say everyone messed up here, that's actually not true, because sure, Clear could have started believing Alex sooner, but at least she got the squad together and actually came up with some productive ideas. So Clear, we cool, but everybody else, that's a different story. Like first, we got the homie Billy, and I think it's pretty clear this guy wasn't the smartest cookie, but even still, getting taken out the way he did was just dumb. Like, even if he didn't know Death was about to skip Carter and go straight to him, he still knew that he was somewhere on that list. So, standing a few inches away from a speeding train probably wasn't the best idea. Now, the worst part is, he didn't even get a cool, elaborate demise like his teacher. Nah, Death just called an audible mid-play and smoked him with some random crap. That is just sad. Then we got my dude Alex. Why not just tell everyone the order as soon as he figured it out? Like, what's the point of hiding it if they already know they're on the list? It could only help if everyone knows who's next, and when this dude Carter figured it out by himself, that just made things even worse. So for a guy who's been more happy to cause a whole scene in the past, it's kind of a weird time to switch up and start acting all cagey, I'm just saying. Which brings me to this dude Carter. This dude found out Death itself was after him, and his genuine reaction was to start speeding, running stop signs, basically doing everything he could to rage bait the Grim Reaper into taking him early. And then out of all the things he could have done, he stops right on some freaking train tracks just to prove a point. That's literally insane. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say that as a group, they really dropped the ball on this one. And when somebody in the squad's out here moving like an idiot, that's how you know that y'all done up. Now at this point, Alex isn't taking any chances, so at the cabin he starts going around trying to death-proof the whole place. Like he's over here duct taping stuff to walls, eating nasty canned meat so he doesn't choke, but just when he thinks he's got it all covered, the wind knocks over a fishing pole that hooks onto the closet, and as Alex runs over to shut it, a knife almost comes through and hits him in the face. He looks down to see a bunch of rusty fishing hooks all over the floor, making him think that Death was trying to give him tetanus. So he starts shouting at the air like, "Ha! Miss me again, fool!" So back at home, Claire looks out her window and sees the feds still posted outside. She's getting worried about Alex being out there all alone, but the agents promise that they'll keep him safe. So she finally caves and decides to tell them where he is. Meanwhile, Alex comes across an article about the crash with a photo of the 2 girls who asked him to change seats. And that's when it hits him. In real life, he never actually moved, which means if they actually stayed on the plane, Clear would have been in front of him. Just then, the lamp goes out, so Alex starts trying to light it again, but as he's trying to get a spark, he sees a vision of a bolt of lightning. And that makes him realize that Clear is about to get zapped. But just as he's heading out, frickin' 12 pulls up and starts chasing after him, leaving him no choice but to hop in a damn canoe and start paddling across the lake. Back at Clear's, a huge lightning bolt strikes the power line outside, sending a bunch of electricity shooting all over the yard, but her dog Fritz is still out there, so Clear has to run outside and save him. Alex makes it right across the lake before the feds catch up, so he gets up and starts dipping through the woods with the cops still chasing after him. He ends up tripping and falling down a hill where he almost goes face first straight into a sharp branch, but he manages to lose the cops for now. Alright, well at least Alex didn't get clapped by a frickin' tree, but even though he got the order wrong, I still have a plan. Now that he knows Clear is actually up next, that means he's more or less safe to a certain extent, and thanks to his vision, he knows that Death's planning to zap her with electricity. So first, he needs to find Clear and warn her to stay away from anything electric. Cause once she knows the threat, she can focus on keeping herself safe. Then, since it's technically not his time yet, Alex can save her dog Fritz. base, and we've got that base covered. Now, if I was Clear, then I'm staying put inside the house, cause that's the safest place you can be during a lightning storm. But we know Death likes to get creative, so next I'm putting on some rubber boots, rubber gloves, and a rubber rain jacket. Pretty much anything she's got that's made of rubber, cause if you didn't know, rubber is actually super resistant to electricity, so that should keep her safe from any sparks that might get in the house. Now, once Clear is safe, then all they gotta do is prevent Alex's death, and hopefully after it goes through everyone, that might finally break the curse. Clear comes running over just as another bolt of electricity sends the clothesline flying straight at her, but while she's trying to help her buddy Fritz, the clothesline blows over and pokes a hole in the pool, sending water splashing all around them. She tells Fritz to get out of there as she jumps out the water, launching off a wheelbarrow just as the electricity would have taken her out, but she grabs onto the side of the house and jumps inside through the bedroom window. Everything electronic starts exploding all around her as she books it towards the garage and hops in the car, but the door won't open. So she throws it in reverse and tries to blast straight through. Only, just when she's about to escape, the power line hits the hood, killing the battery and leaving her trapped with nowhere to run. That's when Alex finally pulls up on the scene, and he tells Clear to stay in the car since the rubber tires are actually protecting her. He's gotta get this power line off the whip, so he picks up a shovel and starts trying to knock it away. But the electricity knocks the shovel out of his hands, which sends a frickin' propane tank flying straight under the car, and at the same time the sparks light up a trail of turpentine, setting the whole car on fire. And Alex decides that there's only one thing left to do. So after saying his goodbyes, my guy runs up and pulls the power line off with his bare hands, sending him flying back into the garage just as Clear dives for safety. The minute it's over, Clear and the agents run up to check on him, and at first it looks like Alex didn't make it, but this story's not over yet. The next thing we see, it's 6 months later, and who do we find getting off a plane but our good friend Alex, Carter, and Clear? It looks like they finally took that trip to Paris after all, but somewhere in the background a street musician starts playing John Denver, and that's when Alex says that there's been something on his mind. You see, in this case, nobody actually stepped in, so for all he knows, he might still be in danger. Well, that's when he finally notices the song, and as he looks around, he realizes they're completely surrounded by all kinds of dangerous stuff. So he decides that he's gonna meet them back at the hotel, but as he gets up to walk away, Claire sees a vision of a bus in the window. She stops him, just as he almost walks into the street, but he's not safe yet, because the bus ends up taking out a light post that flies up and knocks down the cafe's humongous sign. And it almost squashes Alex until Carter runs up and tackles him out of the way. There's just one problem though. If Carter just saved Alex, then the loop just reset. The sign comes flying straight back at Carter as the movie cuts to black. So in the end, I guess that does make 5 down with only 2 lucky survivors, or technically 292 if you count everyone who stayed on the plane, but as for Alex and Clear, it looks like they'll never really be safe. So if there's one lesson we can all take away from this, it's that death always wins in the end.
Nobody should be getting out of this alive, but you've just cheated death and now it's coming back to finish the job. Everyone around you is dying in the most gruesome and impossible ways because it can use anything to kill you, and you'll be next if you don't figure out how to stop it. But it's going to take everything you have to stay alive. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Final Destination 2. These 4 college students never had a chance. Kimberly and her friends are going to Daytona for spring break with a bag full of weed and expecting to have the time of their lives. But as soon as they get on the highway, they've sealed their fate. Now, none of them are looking for it, but they've been given plenty of fair warning that something bad is going to happen, and the signs are everywhere. She turns on the radio and Highway to Hell starts playing. Not a good omen to start a road trip. She sees her engine light turn on because her car is leaking transmission fluid, but she ignores it. They pass a bus full of jocks chanting Pileup, and they're all from the same school as the original survivors from the first movie. This guy next to them is chugging a beer, and then there's this kid slamming 2 toy cars against each other. Even for a kid, this is not normal behavior. But if you learned anything from the first film, there are no coincidences. Okay, it all might seem like something you typically ignore, but we need to be smarter than this if we want to survive this car ride. Because the concept of death hunting people down has been all over the news. They've all seen it on TV and heard it on the radio. It also happens to be the 1-year anniversary of that crash. So if I'm seeing all this weird stuff going on around me, I'm not shrugging it off. I'm getting spooked right the f*** out and pulling the car over. But it's too late because things are about to get really ugly. In front of them, a police officer spills coffee all over his lap and is distracted as these massive wooden logs break out of their chains and fly out onto the road. The cop looks up just in time to see how he dies, as his head is smashed through the back of the car. This is one of the most brutal deaths I've ever seen, and it only gets worse. There's a massive pileup. A motorcyclist falls and gets crushed by his own bike, and another driver's water bottle gets lodged under the brake pedal and gets wrecked by a garbage truck. Cars are exploding into absurdly massive fireballs, and the college students in the red SUV flip over. Kimberly here sees a man being burned alive and screaming for help, only to get run over by a semi-truck, and it's headed right for her next as it slams into the car and kills her instantly. But then she's back in the car with her friends like nothing ever happened. What the hell's going on? Okay, it's natural to panic, but it's also a waste of valuable time. At this point, there's no denying that we all just died, and we're 7 minutes and 5 seconds away from dying again in a massive pileup if we get on the highway. Now the friends don't remember anything, and I'm not wasting time trying to convince them. I'm turning the car around and getting us to safety. But this girl doesn't do that. She takes us to another level of intelligence and tries to save everyone. And that kind of selflessness in a stressful situation shows high-level thinking. But there are two problems with this so far. First, as long as you're still on the road, you're not really safe. This is a death trap on steroids, so if it's gonna throw giant logs and exploding cars at me, I would pull the handbrake, lock the car, and run to the hills and out of harm's way. Secondly, stopping everyone from dying is actually the worst thing she could do. We'll find out why later, and she has no reason to suspect this, but if death has a plan for everyone, is it wise to intervene with so many people's destinies? The girl spots the logging truck passing and yells at the cop to stop it, but it's too late. The sprawling mayhem of death unfolds just like in her vision, except this time, they're watching from the sidelines. In a state of shock, she turns and sees the number 180 on a road sign and realizes this too isn't a coincidence. Just like the survivors of the Flight 180 plane crash, she's cheated death, and now it's going to hunt her down too. She's so overwhelmed that she doesn't notice a truck headed straight for her. The cop pulls her out of danger, but her friends are crushed. That spring break is cancelled. Okay, 180 is an important number because this isn't the first time it's shown up. It was seen as both a warning and a murder weapon to the previous survivors, so I would take this number seriously because wherever it shows up, people start dying. It might seem superstitious, but there's enough evidence to support this. If it's in your face, it's probably a warning, and you should get the hell out. Later, all the survivors are taken to the police station where the cop asks the girl how she predicted the accident, and she explains that she had a premonition, just like the kid who survived the plane crash a year ago. Everyone else is fed up with the superstition and they all go. The girl's dad arrives to take her home, and as they leave, the cop gives her this look like a small part of him wants to believe her. Alright, as a cop, he has resources that can help them, like blocking off potential death traps from the public or calling a nearby backup to save someone's life based on her premonitions. I'd want to make sure I didn't leave the building until he was completely convinced it was real. If we're gonna cheat death, we'll need all the help we can get. Later, one of the survivors comes back home. He cleans up a bit and starts cooking dinner, but gets distracted by a wind blowing through the room, knocking an H into his noodles. Death is already trying to tell him how he's going to die. He pulls out some diamond-studded jewelry he bought, but the microwave starts to spark, and he drops his ring into the sink. With a fine display of intelligence, he sticks his hand into the hole and can't get it out, which is no surprise. Behind him, the skillet starts burning. He doesn't know what to do, so he slaps the flames with a cloth, knocking the skillet to the floor and spreading the fire throughout his apartment. Okay, where do I begin with this guy? Beating out the flames with a cloth isn't panning out. Now, there's a mug here, and he's standing in front of a sink. The first instinct is to use this mug to douse the flames with water, but this would actually make it worse, because water and oil don't mix, and it would splash the grease, causing the fire to spread. Baking soda is the best solution, because it releases carbon dioxide, which suffocates the flames, but there's something about this guy that tells me he doesn't have any baking soda. His only option is to eliminate oxygen from the fire using a lid or a plate. He'll have to throw it, which is not ideal, but it's better than doing this. He finally rips his hand out from the sink. It's time to bail, but the windows suddenly shut. He smashes through and runs down the fire escape, narrowly avoiding an explosion. He pulls the ladder down and lands on his feet. This guy really is lucky. He's just escaped death like 4 times in a row. But then he slips on the spaghetti he tossed out, and the ladder comes down straight through his eye. If only he could see the irony. That night, all the survivors watch a news report about the guy's death and get worried. The girl was right. Something bad was going to happen, and this cycle of death isn't over. The girl decides to do some digging on that sole survivor of Flight 180 and discovers that she committed herself to a mental institution. What happened to her? The next day, she drives up to meet her, and this survivor woman is not taking any chances. She has the nurse tell all visitors to remove every sharp object before entering, and even makes them check their fingernails. The survivor explains that death will hunt them down according to the order they died in the Premonition, but skip over anyone who gets saved, like Kimberly here did. But that doesn't make any sense to the girl. Her friends died last in her vision, so they shouldn't have died first afterwards. Death is killing them in reverse order. The loner girl doesn't want anything to do with this and refuses to help. It might seem like she'd be death, but all she did was trap herself in a prison at paranoia. Okay, apart from being a total shut-in, admitting yourself to an institution is a great idea. It's got padded cells, 3 square meals, and it takes as much risk out of living as possible. But this would cost a fortune, with average admission prices being as much as $10,000 for a 2-week stay. With that kind of money, you could just death-proof your own house, and here's how. A death-proof bunker first needs to be subterranean. It protects from weather, falling objects, electricity, and much more. It needs sealable entrances like a spaceship, so that any risk can be closed off if death finds a way in. The walls need to be lined with steel and concrete to protect from explosions. I'd place all electronics behind tempered glass, and they must be remotely operated, including video monitors with CCTV showing all above-ground activity, as well as your food preparation. Everything must be padded, and no fire or sharp objects or flammable gases are permitted within 10 meters. It's basically Magneto's prison cell, but instead of blocking metal, it's blocking death. When the girl gets back home, the cop is there and invites her to a meeting at his place with the other survivors. He's done research about Flight 180 and the freak deaths, and now he's more convinced than ever that they all need to work together to beat this thing. But she suddenly sees a swarm of pigeons flying in the glass door's reflection and realizes this is a sign. This kid and his mother are next on death's list, and they're going to be killed by a flock of birds. This should be interesting. At the orthodontist's office, this kid gets seated in the dentist's chair, and seriously, danger is absolutely everywhere. All these canisters full of gases that could poison him, this massive needle full of anesthesia, or these power tools that could rip his mouth into bloody chunks. Now real talk, I have to be practically kidnapped to go to the dentist. So if there's talk of death hunting me down, I'm not going within 10 miles of a dentist's office. Stay the f*** away. This is all a part of Death's elaborate plan, and it starts with this little fish. The suction causes the aquarium's pipe to leak, and the water sprays out onto a power outlet. It heads for the mother, but pigeons start crashing into the windows, and she gets up to see what's going on. The noise interrupts the dentist, who goes to check out the ruckus, but when the outlet starts sparking, the oxygen tank shuts off, and the kid starts feeling the effects of pure nitrous oxide. A plastic fish falls straight into his mouth, and he's too gassed up to remove it and begins to suffocate. Luckily, the assistant finds him just in time to pull it out, looking confused as ever. He got lucky here, but it's not over yet. Leaving the office, they see the cop and the girl running towards them, but it's too late. The kid sees a flock of pigeons and chases them. The birds startle a crane operator, who bumps his controls and sends a pane of glass falling to the ground, squishing the kid into mush. Alright, this is tragic, but it was also entirely preventable because this guy was close enough to save his life. This glass pane was falling from a height of about 10 floors, as we can see it from the dentist's office. That's roughly 35 meters high, and with the acceleration of gravity at 9.8 meters per second, he had about 3 seconds before it hit the ground. It's not much, but he was so close that there was time to push this kid out of the way. I wouldn't do it, but somebody should have. 2 deaths now. It feels like there's nothing she can do. That's when the loner girl appears, finally brave enough to step outside after a year of hiding. She wants to help, but death has changed its rules, and there's only one man who can tell them what they need to know. She takes them to a funeral home to meet an old acquaintance, the mortician, the man who first told the loner girl about Death's design, and now she's back looking for a way to beat Death once again. The mortician tells them only new life can truly defeat death. They bring someone into the world that wasn't meant to be, then this will force death to start anew, and he warns the girl to follow the signs. Okay, we have a new rule, and this one is great. If new life beats death, then these women need to have a baby to keep them alive. Now, I'm not advocating for a survivor orgy here, but if they value their lives, they better find a partner and get busy. Because if they can avoid death for 9 months, then they'll be free from death's curse, and be able to live through a different kind of curse: parenting. The group stops at a gas station and the loner girl gets pissed off, confronting a kid smoking near the pumps. This idiot is putting everyone's lives at risk. Except, what are they even doing here? If my life is at risk everywhere I turn, this is easily one of the worst places to be. They're literally standing above 20,000 gallons of gas. These places have a lot of safety features to prevent the worst, but I'm not putting this past death to find a way at making this all below the kingdom come. If we needed gas, I'm hiring someone to take the car and fill it up for me, and this guy can smoke all he wants because I won't even be there. But then this girl suddenly has a vision of her crashing a white van into a lake and drowning. That detail reminds the cop of the pregnant woman who was driving a white delivery van on the day of the premonition. From what the mortician told them, they realize if she gives birth, they might be able to disrupt death's design. They start over with a clean slate. Putting out an APB, he's able to figure out who she is, and hopefully, she'll be caught by the time they're done with their meeting. Later that night, all the survivors meet up at the cop's apartment. Now if it's me, I'm not letting anyone out of my sight. If someone dies, another will be next until it gets to me, and I'm not taking any chances. Personally, I try locking everyone down in the safest environment possible for 9 months if I have to, but I imagine this idea won't be popular among the group, so communication is the next best thing. Having a death cheaters hotline for any warnings or premonitions could go a long way in delaying my death and everyone else's. But even with all this evidence, the motorcyclist calls BS. He doesn't believe any of this and wants to leave. Grabbing his coat, he drops his keys and it launches the ball into the air, hitting a winch that sends a kayak swinging into the loner girl. She dodges out of the way at the last moment, but she should have seen this coming. Death has been wanting her dead for a long time. We would be missing all these signs if it wasn't for her, and we need to keep her alive because she's essential to our survival. The group will improve their chances if they pair up, sleep in shifts, and take down every loose end in the room. Now, sleeping is when you're at your most vulnerable, but 24 hours without it results in a full 10-point drop in your IQ. I'm gonna need those 10 points if I'm evading death traps. Meanwhile, the cop's plan to find the pregnant woman has paid off. He made sure she was going to be on lockdown to keep her safe and reported her van as stolen, so she's going to jail for Grand Theft Auto. It's a ridiculous plan, but effective. The stoner makes a mess in the closet and notices something weird about these shadows. They look like a man with hooks. It's a sign. In the elevator, a man is holding a basket of prosthetic arms with hooks. Her phone rings and she drops it, but when she picks it up to answer, her hair gets caught on a hook. When they reach the lobby, she tries to run out, but her neck gets caught in between the doors. No matter how hard these two men try, they can't pull it open, and the elevator begins to ascend, taking the poor woman with it. The workaholic here and the loner girl spot her and try to help her as much as they can, but the elevator doors finally crush her neck and sever her head clean off. Okay, once you're stuck like this, there's not a lot you can do, and pressing buttons or panicking won't be enough to counter Death's plan here. Now the door's opening is too narrow to pull apart with enough force and leverage, so I would try using the prosthetic arms to wedge between the door to pry it open. The average difference in width between your neck and your head is 7 centimeters, so it might give just enough for her head to pass through. The motorcyclist comes running back into the apartment. After staring Death in the face, he's now a born-again believer. He steals the cop's gun and puts it to his head, planning to die on his own terms. But no matter how many times he tries, it won't fire. With 6 perfect bullets in the chamber, these are impossible odds, and it means it wasn't his turn to die. Okay, if you thought things were hopeless, this should put the nail in the coffin, because it won't even let us kill ourselves. It has complete power over us. But if things got desperate and we decided enough was enough, how would we end it? Death can play with mechanics, but it doesn't change the laws of physics. A jump from a bridge would kill you, but maybe a gust of wind or a bird distracts you on the jump and your clothes get caught on a nail. Don't underestimate this thing. So I would go where only I can control my life, breath by breath, and that is underwater. Death wouldn't be able to intervene by magically giving you oxygen. I hope it would never come to this, but the ultimate escape is to tie a brick around the ankle, and it's a bon voyage. Stuck in jail, the woman tries to convince the officer to let her go, but the man won't budge. That's when her water breaks and the dude is panicking. She demands to be taken to a hospital, and he's not going to win this argument. In the car, the group learns that every single one of them has actually cheated Death once before, and they're all connected to the survivors of Flight 180. The motorcyclist could have been killed by a student if he hadn't transferred to Mount Abraham after a teacher died in an explosion. The cop would have died in a shootout if he hadn't been called away to check up on a train wreck where a kid got his head chopped off, and the driver was on a bus trip that could have led to her death, but on the way there, her bus ran over a girl. The stoner would have died in a collapsed building if he hadn't been distracted by the jock getting crushed by a falling sign, and the girl would have died in a carjacking if she hadn't watched a news report about a kid who hung himself. Okay, this literally changes everything we know about Death's design. When we cheat Death, it's not just affecting us, it's affecting everyone we encounter by proxy through the butterfly effect. This basically creates a global pandemic of freak accidents because it's changing the course of history in real time. So I would actually consider helping make sure Death gets its kills the way he originally planned. We should have moved the car off the road and let everyone pass, right into the afterlife, because it limits the butterfly effect of Death playing catch up, and therefore, it literally kills less people. Meanwhile, the pregnant woman and the officer are headed to the hospital and straight into the other survivors. One of the wheels blows out and the two cars luckily avoid running into each other, but sends them off-road and right into danger. They crash through a pile of hay bales, knocking over a fence and reversing into these pipes that almost go through the driver's head. She's lucky to be alive, but the motorcyclist has been impaled. He can't breathe, and the driver's leg is trapped beneath a log. Just a side note, none of these people should be driving at all. Road accidents are far more likely than any one of these death traps. Over 1 million people are killed in car accidents in the US every year, but bicycles are less likely to get you killed or run over, at only 2% of vehicle deaths. So this dramatically cuts down the risk in traveling. It won't solve everything, but it's definitely an improvement. Seeing the accident, the other cop wants to help, but the pregnant woman stops him. Her baby is more important. He calls in emergency services for them and bails. The police finally arrive on the scene and the motorcyclist is taken into an ambulance. Clear Hair tells them to be careful of anything that could be dangerous or go wrong. Faulty gauges, overdoses, potholes, puddles. Man, she thinks of everything. A news van comes speeding to the accident site and almost hits this kid. It's only thanks to the stoner pulling him out of the way that he survived, but it's all a part of Death's next trap. The news van backs up into some rocks, puncturing its fuel tank, and begins leaking gasoline that spills its way through a broken pipe. The firefighters begin to break open the car door, but trigger the airbags, which throw the woman's head straight into a broken pipe. Okay, they shouldn't be this surprised. Everyone left her inside even when they knew who was next in Death's kill order. I would have at least cut the sharp pole that's sticking out of her headrest before anything else could go wrong. They're being way too casual about all the dangers they're exposed to. Her dead hand drops the cigarette and a strong breeze sends it rolling into a pipe and lighting the trail of gasoline, and the van explodes, hurling a barbed wire fence post through the stoner's body, cutting him in half. Meanwhile, lying in a hospital bed, the motorcyclist listens to a news report about the driver dying and realizes he's next. The doors suddenly slam shut, the ventilation closes, and the tubes to the oxygen tank break. He can see it all happening, but he's too weak to escape. The group finally arrives at the hospital and split up, the loner girl going to find the motorcyclist while the other two look for the pregnant woman. After a dramatic labor, the baby is born, and they all celebrate, but I'm not believing a second of it, because Death doesn't give up this easily. Kimberly here has another vision of the accident and realizes the pregnant woman was never supposed to die in the Pileup. But what does that mean for her premonition about the lake? She remembers someone with bloody hands was driving the car. The loner girl goes to find the motorcyclist, and just before she opens the door, Kimberly over here has a horrible realization. Just as the death trap in the motorcyclist's room goes off, the life support cord gets yanked out, igniting the trapped gas and causes a massive explosion that takes out the motorcyclist and the loner girl. I have to admit, I did not see that coming. The girl sees that she has bloody hands and realizes the premonitions are about her. It's all happening just like in her vision, including a white van parking outside the hospital. She spots a newspaper clipping about a drowning victim who got a new life after surviving and realizes she has to die to save them and tells the cop to get the doctor. She jumps into the van and accelerates into the nearby lake. The cop runs after her and dives in to help her, but he can't open the door and she blacks out. She wakes up in the hospital as the doctor resuscitates her. She didn't die, which means she's cheated death again, and this time for good. Okay, this risky little experiment was totally worth it, because now any and all survivors can follow in her footsteps. I'd use the defibrillators to end it and have a friend shock me back like the Flatliners did. Later, the two of them have lunch with her dad, along with another family, and they find out this kid over here was the one who almost got hit by the news van. His parents note it was a miracle he didn't die, and the two survivors have a sudden realization and see the kid get blown up by the barbecue. They might have avoided death, but it's still hungry for more souls.
You just survived a horrific roller coaster accident, and now death is hunting you down. There's no way to escape it, and it won't stop its murderous rampage until every single survivor is brutally killed. Anything could be a murder weapon or a death trap, and you'll have to do the most savage things if you want to survive. When you know how you're going to die and nothing can stop it, what do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Final Destination 3. This is the deadliest place in America. These high schoolers are having fun at an amusement park, and Wendy here is capturing the last moments of their senior year before graduation. The girl checks her camera to see how the photos are coming out and notices something weird. In the picture, the sign reads "High Die," but when she looks back up, the light is still on. She can feel that something is off, but has no idea that she's just seen a premonition of her own future. Going around the theme park, she takes photos of her other classmates playing carnival games. These two girls are having fun at the water gun shootout, and Lewis here is killing it at the strongman. But the girl can't shake the feeling that with every photo, a bad omen is following them. Her friends get in line for the Devil's Flight roller coaster, and Wendy here starts to get nervous. Her boyfriend reassures her nothing bad is going to happen and convinces her to rejoin the group. But as they walk in, she feels like her life is in danger. They reach the platform, and this girl is surrounded by signs of death. But when she finds out they're assigned to the front seat, she panics, begging her friends to all sit in the back. Nobody wants to join her, but they decide to settle this fairly and toss a coin. Kevin here loses the flip and gets stuck with Wendy to sit in the back. Okay, normally roller coasters are incredibly safe, and statistically, you have a 1 in 750 million chance of dying on a ride. Having said that, this is not a normal roller coaster, and there were signs to tell us we shouldn't get on. The first clue was the missing letter in the photo spelling the word die. When she was in line, the pillars that hold the ride together were shaking loose and looked very unstable. When she approaches the cars, she walks up to gate 6. This guy cuts in front of them and tries to steal their seats, but that makes 3 people at the gate, and 3 sixes is the number of the beast. They move further back, but their seats are stolen by a bunch of underage kids who aren't even allowed to be here. These all might seem innocent, but with this many strange coincidences, I would start taking my superstitions a little more seriously. Now, even though an accident is statistically rare, that doesn't mean it couldn't happen to you. For over a decade, Action Park in Vernon, New Jersey was the most dangerous amusement park in US history, with regular injuries and even tragic deaths from their rides, and nearly all were a result of poor safety standards and maintenance. With that in mind, this girl is right to be concerned. She's being peer pressured into doing something she doesn't feel safe with. And honestly, there's no shame in telling your friends you're going to sit this one out. It might just be the smartest thing you'll ever do. They get in the car and the restraints come down, trapping them all in, as the operator pushes start and the roller coaster begins to take off. But none of them know that hydraulic fluid is leaking out of the cars. The ride picks up speed, racing down the tracks, but when they reach the loop, everything starts to go wrong. This guy's video camera gets knocked out of his hand and falls through the air but gets caught on the track below. The roller coaster train drives over it, breaking the hydraulics and turning their screams of joy into absolute fear. The restraints suddenly unlock, and they hold on for dear life as the cars go through another loop. The wheels fly off their axles and the front car gets unhitched, sending the riders tumbling to their deaths. This kid falls out of his seat and manages to catch the side rail as the ride goes through a corkscrew. He loses his grip and flies into the support beam where he breaks in half and dies. But it's not over for them yet as a piece of the car slams into the ride and dislodges the tracks. Riding over the broken rail, they go up another loop and stop as they reach the top of the spiral. They hold on for as long as they can, but these two lose their grip and plummet to their deaths, leaving Wendy and Kevin here as the only 2 passengers left. Okay, if they were looking for a thrill, they've definitely gotten their money's worth. Despite all odds, they actually have a chance here to save themselves before they end up like their friends. Since the crash has caused the ride to lose its momentum, the cars on the roller coaster are heavy enough to stabilize them in position. Since they are already stuck in place, small movements won't be enough to give it momentum to fall back down the tracks. Now fortunately, these shoulder straps here are still strong enough to hold their full weight, so instead of hanging from them, we should stand on them with our feet and turn ourselves upright. Once we're standing the right way up, I would try to climb over the car and onto the rails of the roller coaster, because we can wait there to be rescued. But as long as we're hanging upside down in our seats, we have no control over what happens. I would try to take off my jacket and wrap it around the wheels in a figure 8, tying the roller coaster down to the tracks. It might seem small, but it's going to make a huge difference, because there's no momentum here to push the cars forward, so the whole thing could easily be stabilized by my jacket because the wheels wouldn't be able to start moving enough to gain inertia. Working together, they rock the train back and forth until they finally come loose. But Kevin can't get back in his seat in time and gets torn in half by a pole, leaving Wendy here the last person alive. As the train hits the loose rail, she's thrown out of her seat and falls headfirst onto the tracks below, but she doesn't die. Wendy here suddenly finds herself in tears, sitting back in the car moments before the ride will take off. Realizing what's about to happen, she screams at the technicians not to push the button. Security steps out to see what's going on, and they let her out of the car. She's having a total breakdown and tells them she had a vision where all the riders died in a horrible accident, but nobody believes her. Lewis here is upset that she's interrupted the ride and thinks this is just a desperate attempt to get attention. Kevin here steps up to defend her, and they get into a fight as others nearby join in. The security manages to break it up and throws them all off the ride, leaving her boyfriend here stuck in his seat. Okay, this is some serious voodoo magic. There's no doubt in my mind that what we just saw was a real experience and not a vision. And to save all of the passengers here, we need to find a way to completely close down the ride. But you won't get that done by telling them that you saw it all in your head. These guys are just going to think you're high and escort you off the premises. We need to lie through our teeth and say anything necessary even if it gets us in trouble, because otherwise 17 people will get killed. I would tell them that I personally sabotaged the ride and wanted to die on the roller coaster, but I couldn't go through with it. Nobody in their right mind would let another train onto the tracks if a threat has been made, and any responsible ride operator would take this threat seriously. They would bring in the security as well as the police, and the ride would be forced to close until it was properly investigated. Now, when they question her, they will quickly find out that she doesn't know a damn thing about roller coaster mechanics, and the threat will be dismissed. But this is something I can live with, because as long as me and my friends are not on that ride, we've done our job. Still in shock, Wendy walks towards the exit when she suddenly realizes that her boyfriend is still stuck on the ride. He begs to be let out, but the other passengers start chanting to continue, and the train leaves the station. Wendy here runs back onto the platform and yells at them to stop, but the security jumps on her and she's forced outside. They're startled when they hear people screaming above and look up to see the passengers falling to their deaths. She's devastated by the accident, but she has no idea that this is only the beginning. Okay, this girl had one last chance to save her boyfriend and she blew it. She's the only person here who knows for a fact that everyone on the ride is about to die, so if she doesn't do everything in her power to intervene, it will be 100% her fault. Personally, if I knew what was about to happen, I would shove this guy out of the way and push the stop button. If all you're willing to do is shout at your boyfriend before he dies, then you don't deserve him. Days later, the girl is at school to pick up her diploma and clean out her locker, but she's still tormented by everything that happened. Outside, Kevin catches up to talk with her, but she's in no mood to speak with anyone and gets in the car. He can do nothing to cheer her up, but before she leaves, Kevin admits that he's been looking for answers and has found them. 6 years ago, a class of students were on a trip to Paris when one kid had a vision that the plane was going to blow up. He and his friends were thrown out, and just like her vision of the roller coaster, it all came true. The plane exploded, and months later, they all began dying in freak accidents. She doesn't believe him and drives away, but she'll soon find out that they're both already a part of Death's new plan. Okay, this girl should not be so glib about his research, because right now, he's showing more initiative at finding answers than she is. After what she's been through, any theory, no matter how crazy, needs to be considered, because these events have happened before, and there are plenty of records on these freak accidents. If she took the science seriously enough to research, she would realize death has 5 main rules. Number 1, death kills people in the order they would have died in the Premonitions. Number 2, if you save someone's life, death will skip to the next person in the kill order. Number 3, death leaves clues for the survivors to figure out how they're going to die. Number 4, death will not allow you to kill yourself, and you can't die until it's your turn. Number 5, you can only escape death's design by creating a new life. This is a goldmine of information, and if it were me, I would be trying to learn as many lessons as possible from these past cases, because if all this is true, then 10 people are about to die. Later that day, these 2 Valley girls walk into the tanning salon to bronze their skin for graduation. The receptionist is in a rush and leaves to answer a phone call, using a bottle of lotion as a door jamb, not knowing that this one act will set 2 more deaths into motion. The girls walk into a tanning room and the blonde puts her drink down on this table while her friend turns up the temperature on the thermostat. Ashley here looks through the salon CDs for music when one of the shelf fixtures pops off the wall. Taking off their clothes, they lay down on the tanning beds and shut the lids as they start jamming out to their music, but they don't realize that the slushy is condensing over a dangerous electrical unit and the circuits begin to smoke. Outside, the door has squeezed out all of the lotion in the bottle and it slams shut, leaving no one in the building to help. The voltage climbs, making the temperature rise, and the brunette begins to realize something's wrong. Meanwhile, Wendy's at home looking through her photos of the night her boyfriend died, and she notices he was posing in front of the ride at the exact moment the cars are coming down, perfectly aligned over his head. She looks through the rest of the photos and finds an overexposed picture of the Valley girls. It looks like they're on fire, and she gets a feeling that something horrible is about to happen. Wendy tries to call them, but this coat rack in the salon falls over, knocking a plant into the shelf, and it breaks off the wall. Landing on her tanning bed, the blonde girl tries to lift up the cover, but the shelf has trapped them inside. The heat begins to boil their skin, and they scream in pain, alerting the receptionist, but he finds that the back door is jammed shut and the front door has been locked from the inside. No one's coming to save them, and the tanning beds burst into flames. That's 2 dead, and there are 8 survivors left. Okay, in all honesty, I'm not even sure this is Death's fault, because everything these girls touch turns to and they both could have avoided dying by simply following the rules. First of all, 2 Valley girls in a room full of dangerous electronics with no supervision is never going to end well, and I wouldn't even trust them with a microwave. Secondly, the receptionist definitely should have known better than to leave these girls to operate all this expensive equipment on their own, but he did warn them before leaving not to take their drinks into the room. They pretended to throw it away and didn't respect this man enough to follow his rules. Now, this wooden plank is not difficult to escape from, and Death took it easy on them here. If it's able to fall into the handles, then it must also be possible to take it out. These beds look like they're about a meter wide, and the shelf here is only sticking in by a couple of inches at most. All you need to do is nudge the shelf into the other girl's tanning bed and you're free. The fact they didn't figure this out is astounding, and all I can say is, at least they died doing what they love, and now they've got smoking hot bodies to show for it. The next day, a funeral is held for the girls and the school has gathered to pay their respects. After the service, Kevin finds Wendy at her boyfriend's grave and walks up to see how she's doing. She tells him that ever since they got on the roller coaster, she's felt a presence stalking her wherever she goes, and has found proof that this feeling isn't just a superstition. She shows him the last photo taken of Abraham Lincoln with a line running through his head in the exact place he was shot, and a photo of the Twin Towers with a plain shadow predating 9/11. The photos she took at the amusement park are giving them clues to how they will all die, and she admits he was right. She had a vision that saved their lives, and now that they've cheated death, a mysterious force is hunting them down one by one. Alright, this is freaky, but we've actually figured out a new death rule here. The last picture you take of someone before they die has a clue in it of what will cause their death. If I were them, I would try to use this to our advantage. Right now the clues are difficult to find because it could be anything in the photo, so what we need is a pattern. I would gather the survivors and take as many pictures of them as we can in different situations, because if the rule is true, then we will start to find the same clues in every single photo we take, and we will be able to compare the photos to confirm the patterns. With enough pictures, we will know for sure what's going to kill us, where, and how. Leaving the cemetery, Kevin here tells her that death is killing them in the order they would have died if they stayed on the roller coaster, and they realize that would mean that Frankie the camera guy would be next, since he was behind the two girls on the ride. They pull over into a drive-thru nearby so they can take another look at the photo. There's nothing that stands out, but that's when the girl remembers Frankie was wearing a mudflap girl necklace that day. This could be the clue that tells them how he's going to die. They pull up to the window to place their order when the drive-thru display suddenly starts glitching out and death starts taking control. A semi-truck starts backing into their car, trapping them as the radio cycles through channels and begins to play a song. Panicking, the girl turns around and sees a truck with no driver is headed right for them, but they're trapped on all sides and can't open their doors. The kids have no choice but to kick the windshield out and jump out of the car. The truck slams into the vehicle and the engine is sent flying into the driver in front of them, blending his skull into bloody mush. Finding a mudflap girl necklace on the ground, the kids realize that the person who just got killed was Frankie the camera guy. That's another one down, and there are 7 survivors left. Okay, I know this looks bad, but this could have been a lot worse. They escaped with their lives, but they also had a few more options they didn't consider that would have made a difference. I would have tried manipulating the situation to our advantage and used death's own rules to do it. Now, they've just figured out that Frankie is going to die next because he was sitting behind the Valley Girls on the roller coaster, but they didn't consider rule number 4, which says that you can't die until it's your turn. With this information, they could have put together that this truck is not intended for them at all, and that with a freak accident in the making, Frankie must be nearby. This means the best way out of this situation is to do absolutely nothing. If we know that we're not going to die until it's our turn, then technically, by staying exactly where we are, the death trap would avoid us and head right for Frankie. Now, if they weren't panicking, they would have realized that there were clues about everything that was going to happen. First, they nearly crashed into a truck on their way to the drive-thru, and since they know that Frankie's sign is a mudflap girl, they should have considered this a warning. Next, the drive-in sign told them that they have no control over what's about to happen. Lastly, the song that played on the radio is called Turn Around, Look at Me. This is word for word all they needed to say to save this guy from imminent death. Now, personally, I would have taken the more direct approach here and rammed into his car to get his attention. He would have turned around mad as hell and would see the truck headed straight for him. Death was giving them all the answers, and instead of listening, they panicked and this guy died. Together, they go to Wendy's house to find out where everyone was sitting on the roller coaster, but there were 2 other kids on the ride and they have no idea who they are. These photos confirm the order everyone will die in, and they need to get to the next student before time runs out. That's when Kevin here realizes that the jock is going to die next at a football training camp for the state's team, the Sultans. She reminds him there are pictures of them at the amusement park too, but he doesn't want to see how he dies. The thought terrifies him and he refuses to look at his photo. Okay, we should definitely look at our own photos. These pictures are a one-time only get-out-of-death-free card, and if you're not willing to use them, then you're an idiot. But there is a logical reason to wait before looking. These pictures have become like a Schrodinger's cat experiment, because as soon as they look at the photo, it will lock in the cause of death. That's not necessarily a good thing, because if we know how someone else dies and intervene in death's design by saving someone's life, then you might not die in the same way because you've altered the future. This makes your own photo useless because it will no longer give you clues for how you're going to die, but rather for how you were going to die. It would be the smarter move to save Lewis first and then look at the pictures because you'll have a more accurate idea of how death will try to kill you under the new circumstances. The next day, they try to convince Lewis here that he's going to die next, and the guy thinks they've gone crazy, but the girl sees that all the signs are there. There are 2 swords hanging from a plaque above and a stuffed bear standing nearby, both hints that were in the jock's photo. Behind them, a guy breaks off a bear claw that hits another weightlifter in the eye. He drops his barbell and the impact knocks the swords loose. They swing down and slice through the cables on Lewis's machine, but nothing happens. He brags that death can't touch him, and the jock does one last victory rep, but the weights fold down and crush his head. That's 4 dead, and now there are 6 survivors left. Okay, if there's anybody you don't want to taunt, it's death. I can understand why Lewis here would be skeptical, because the crap that's coming out of their mouths is absolutely insane. Unfortunately, it also happens to be true. If I were him, I would ignore them as well. But that attitude would change really quickly if I witnessed a chain of events that goes from a bear's toenail to sword swinging down and nearly missing my head. It would be enough for me to believe them, and I would thank my lucky stars that I survived. Now, even if he doesn't believe us, there is one thing we could try in order to save his life. If he insists on working out, we can goad him into a safer workout routine. I would tell him that he's a fucking weak-ass and challenge him to every bodyweight exercise there is. I'm obviously not going to beat him at any, but it might be enough to trick him into working out away from the dangerous machines and weighted plates, and in a safer area of the gym. That night, they visit the hardware store and warn the goth kids that they're going to die next. Neither of them believe their theory and make fun of them for thinking that death is a conscious being and is hunting everyone down. Distracted, he bumps a cardboard box off a shelf and it lands on a forklift in the other aisle. Cleaning up, his girlfriend unknowingly knocks a length of chain loose and unravels, catching a hook that turns the ignition of the keys in the forklift. The vehicle accelerates forward, and Death is already here to set up his next trap. The goth kid mentions that if Death really is hunting them down in a specific order, then the last person to be targeted could save everyone by sacrificing themselves. This would break the pattern and put an end to Death's design, but nobody is willing to test the theory. Okay, this is an interesting idea, because if it's true, then one girl's death could have saved 9 other lives from the beginning. Now, it's very hard to convince someone to sacrifice themselves on just a hunch, but you could still test the theory by killing them yourself. If there was only one person standing in the way of me and 8 others staying alive, then it's definitely worth killing that person for the greater good. If the last person dies before anyone else, it goes against the order we were supposed to die in. This is a way we could force Death to bend his own rules, and maybe it will break his master plan enough to set us free. Either the last person on the list is completely invincible and can't die until all the others die first, or they can die, which will break Death's pattern. Either way, I would gladly trade a life for this information, as long as it's not my own. Wendy here checks the photo again to see if she missed something and realizes that the goth kid is about to get impaled by these stakes. The forklift suddenly rams into this wall, which knocked everything off the shelves. The girl pushes the kid out of the way and saves his life as everything comes tumbling down. She's just intervened in Death's plan, and now it has skipped to the next person in line. The goth girl is thrown back and slams her head into a fully loaded nail gun, turning her face into a human pincushion. All of her friends watch in horror as it becomes undeniably clear that they're all one step closer to death, and now there are 5 survivors remaining. Okay, it's not the best timing, but this is when I would be saying I told you so. Earlier, these kids actually admitted that they didn't know who to be killed first between the 2 of them. If they really wanted to protect these guys, all this effort trying to convince them that their lives are in danger is a massive waste of time, and they did a piss poor job of it. If it's me, I would be coming in here demanding that they should come with me if they want to live. Honestly, I'll hurt them if I have to, and if it escalates into a full-on hostage situation, that's fine with me too. I'm not doing any of this for them, I'm doing it to save my own life. I would rather lock them in a cage against their will where there is no possible way to die, because the longer I keep them alive, the longer I keep myself alive, and that's all that matters right now. Exhausted, Wendy returns home and falls asleep at her desk, but her sister comes in and wakes her up from her nap to take back her bracelet. She leaves the room, but Wendy suddenly realizes something important. She opens one of the pictures on the roller coaster and recognizes the bracelet of one of the unknown passengers. It was her sister on the ride this whole time. She tries to call her but is sent straight to voicemail and leaves her a message. She then phones Kevin, telling him that her sister and her friend are next on Death's list. She's about to leave for the Tricentennial Fair to warn them, and he reminds her that they'll be next if they don't save her sister. Kevin tells her it's now the right time to look at their death photos for clues. Checking the computer, she looks at his picture and finds one of him squinting from a bright light. He asks if it looks like a firework went off in his face, and she confirms it does. They hang up as Kevin nervously watches the Fairgrounds staff load these huge mortars for the fireworks show and realizes his time has come. Okay, this guy should already be running for his life. If you want to stay alive, you're going to need as much control over your environment as possible, and this fair is just about the worst place to do that. There are too many people doing dangerous things, and it creates too many unpredictable outcomes for you to avoid. But the problem is, we can't just hop in a car and drive away. We know that the picture is of a bright light flashing in his face moments before his death. If we drive out of here, then instead of fireworks being the most likely sign, it could easily change to a car's headlights. It's turning dark, and we could be killed in a head-on collision, which statistically is way more likely than dying by fireworks. So staying at the fair might actually be the safer bet. Kevin's entire life depends on the sister, so instead of waiting for our turn to die, we should take matters into our own hands and kidnap her. Normally this wouldn't be a viable strategy, but he has a huge advantage because he's a security guard. It's cold-blooded, but knocking her out and dragging her to an empty area of the park is the safest thing he can do, and if anyone saw it, I would say she's passed out drunk. She'll be rightfully upset when she wakes up, but we'll both be alive and she can thank us later. Kevin here is getting nervous as he sees danger everywhere he turns. The tall flame of a barbecue, the sharpened sword of a reenactor, and Ben Franklin flying a key with his kite hoping for a lightning bolt to strike. Any one of these could kill him, but he has no idea how. He finally spots Wendy's sister with her friends and makes his way over to her. Approaching the girls, he tells them their lives are in danger and they need to come with him, but the situation gets out of hand and the sister storms away. The fireworks are about to begin and the soldiers leave their post, but the cannon rammer falls over, knocks a cannonball loose, and rolls into a wooden post holding up the fireworks launcher. Okay, this is not a good sign, and it means death is near. But the problem is, this girl is not interested in anything we have to say, and if we don't want to kidnap her, then we should at least be doing everything in our power to make sure we aren't going to die while we're here. Right now, they think he's going to be killed by fireworks, and the only way we can get a handle on this situation is by controlling it as much as humanly possible. As counterintuitive as it may sound, I would head straight for the fireworks to try and control everything that comes near it. We could remove the fuses or the ammunition or wet them so they can't spark and go off. Now, by doing this, it's just as likely that the method changes to something else as a result. By sabotaging the fireworks, Death might decide to use the barbecue instead, and that would be a lot more difficult to control because it's a manned station and would be harder to interfere with. But the best hope we have is to eliminate as many of the possible sources of death as we can without getting caught, and try to find the sister so we can all leave. Wendy finally arrives at the fair and looks for both Kevin and her sister in the crowd, but can't find them. Suddenly, the lights go out and the show begins. That's when these two kids set everything into motion. They light some firecrackers that go off near a horse and scare it into running loose through the fairgrounds, dragging a fence post with it. Wendy spots her sister with Kevin, but suddenly remembers that there was a merry-go-round in the background of her photo, and now a horse is racing towards them. She yells to look out, and Kevin pushes the girl out of the way, but the fence post wraps around her neck. She's dragged across the fairgrounds and is seconds away from sliding into the gun carriage, but Kevin here steals a sword, cutting the rope just before she gets impaled. Okay, Kevin screwed up here big time. This girl did not appreciate that they were trying to save her life and has been disrespectful every single chance she got. When we look at the value of a life, we should also consider how much society benefits from that life. And my assessment here is that this girl is better off dead. People will miss her, but she's a terrible role model to her friends, and her death will shock them into being better people. If good people die and bad people live, it teaches us all that our actions don't have consequences. This is the one time I'm on Death's side here, and I think we should just support his decision. Her sister is freaking out, but Wendy isn't wasting any time. She demands to know who is sitting next to her on the roller coaster because they're about to die. Another firework goes off and the horse gets startled, ripping the flagpole into the air and impaling her friend right in front of them. Now that 6 people are dead, there are 4 survivors remaining, and Wendy and Kevin here are next on Death's hit list. Suddenly, Kevin gets kicked by the horse into a table, sending a shish kebab flying into the gas line of a propane tank. It explodes into a fireball, but Wendy saves him at the last minute. They've skipped the death order again, and now Wendy is next. She spots the goth kid coming for revenge, and that's when she figures out the clue from her death photo. She remembers that his last name, McKinley, is the same name as her school, and that's the shirt she was wearing in the picture. Helping her friend off the ground, they try to run away, but the goth kid stops them. She begs him to stay away, but when she says this, he realizes that he's the cause of her death. Suddenly, Wendy hears the launcher behind them fall to the ground, and she pulls her friends down as the fireworks fly past them, hitting the cherry picker behind him. The kid takes one last moment to gloat, but the hydraulic piston fails, and the arm swings down, splattering the kid flat on the ground. He wanted to get Wendy killed, but by stopping her, he intervened in her death and saved her life. That's 7 down and 3 survivors remaining. 5 months later, and the death cycle has stopped. Wendy is taking a subway with her friends and is thankful to be alive. That's when she suddenly hears a busker playing Turn Around, Look at Me, the same song that played on the radio at the drive-thru, and realizes that Death's plan isn't over. Sitting down, she sees in a mirror's reflection that the subway car number is 180 and tries to get off at the next stop but gets blocked by all the boarding passengers. That's when she runs into her sister, distracting her away from the closing doors, sealing them inside. They sit down, and she tells her that she's still paranoid they're still going to die in freak accidents, but their sister assures her that it's over and nothing bad will happen. She lets it go and takes her to meet her friends, but that's when they spot Kevin sitting in the subway car and realize that this is no coincidence. Death has brought them all together and is going to take them all out. Further down the tracks, a rat triggers the wiring to switch the rail line, and the train hits it, crashing through the tunnels. Wendy's sister gets hit by a loose wheel, and the train tips onto its side, throwing Kevin against the wall. The window cracks beneath him and he falls out, getting ripped to shreds. The train finally comes to a screeching halt, and the only survivor is Wendy here with a broken leg, and there's no one alive to help. That's when she sees another train racing towards her and she screams in terror. But just as it crashes into her, she's suddenly back on the train moments before the accident happens. Looking at her expression, Kevin here realizes she just had a premonition and they all panic. He pulls down on the emergency brake and the sisters try to force open the doors, but the train won't stop. And Death finally gets his revenge. If Death was brutally murdering your friends in freak accidents and you're next, what would you do? There's nowhere safe to hide, and it won't stop hunting everyone down until you're all dead. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Death in the final destination. In 5 minutes, everyone here will be dead. These 4 friends are watching a car race hoping to see a crash, when Nick here notices something is wrong. Looking up, he sees a huge crack in the foundation of the building and gets a strange feeling that something terrible is about to happen. Death has just picked its next victims, and he's about to turn this place into hell on Earth. Down on the track, a tool flies out the back of one of the cars and lands on the road. Suddenly, a car runs over the tool, setting the vehicle flipping through the air, and a loose tire flies into the crowd, taking this woman's head clean off. Panicking, the audience runs for the exits, but another car catches fire and crashes into the stands, crushing another man to death. The hood of another car is flung off the track and slices this couple in half. Death is having an absolute field day, and as the crowd is trying everything they can to squeeze themselves through the exit, Nick realizes there's no way out of here alive. Okay, this is absolute chaos. The exits are jammed, the building is collapsing, and race cars are crushing people in the stands. But there's actually one thing Nick here can do to have a greater chance at surviving than anyone else. In the 1950s, the government implemented the Federal Civil Defense Administration to educate the public about how to protect themselves in case of an air raid or nuclear attack. The famous solution they came up with was to simply duck and cover if you're in a collapsing building. The problem is, this stadium has nothing for these people to hide under, and we need a different strategy to protect ourselves called the Triangle of Life. Now, this is not a standard government-supported recommendation, but it applies perfectly in this situation because the only points of safety are these support beams. You should position yourself next to them and lie on the floor in the fetal position. This creates a triangle of safety that protects you from the collapsing building. The ceiling will collapse at its weakest point between the support beams, and these pillars here are reinforced with steel rebar. So we have a much higher chance of survival if we crouch here in one of these corners while everyone else scrambles for a way to escape. Suddenly, a huge piece of the ceiling crushes everyone in the crowd that's trapped in the exit, and Nick here turns around to look for his girlfriend. That's when an explosion goes off and he watches Lori and the security guard consumed in flames. Thrown back from the impact, he's pushed straight into a piece of rebar, but just before he dies, he suddenly finds himself back in the bleachers as if nothing ever happened. Nick here looks around confused, but slowly starts to realize that he's reliving the events right before the crash, and they're all about to die if they don't leave this place immediately. Refusing to leave, his friend pushes him down into the crowd, knocking someone over and starting a fight. Nick and his friends run out of the arena, and the angry spectators follow him out of the building to finish what he started. Outside, he tells them that there's going to be a huge crash, and they don't believe him. But suddenly, they hear an explosion. Turning around, they see the audience running for their lives as a ball of flame erupts behind them. This man tries to go back in to save his wife, but the security guard holds him back for his safety. That's when a wheel comes flying out of the arena and decapitates this woman just like the Vision, and all of them are frozen in shock. That's 1 down with 8 to go, and death is just getting started. That night, Nick here and his friends meet up at a coffee shop to process the gruesome deaths they just witnessed. But the boyfriend gets the feeling that this is only the beginning. The girlfriend suggests they should all go to the memorial tonight to honor those that died in the accident, but the others refuse to go back. That's when he tells them he saw a vision of everything that happened, including his own death, but the frat bro thinks he survived because of his lucky coin. This man's luck is going to run out sooner than he thinks, because he's going to have the most horrifying death of them all. Okay, this is a pretty freaky situation, because Nick here had a clear experience of his own death and has no answers for what just happened. Now, this operates outside of the realms of science, because there's no way to prove what he saw or experienced was real. But if he simply followed the news, he would have quickly realized this isn't the first time something like this has happened. We can see on this TV news report that the name of the racetrack is called the McKinley Speedway, and McKinley is the same town where 4 years ago, a bunch of kids died on a roller coaster at a local amusement park. But a girl and her friends got off the ride because she had a premonition that they were all going to die. If they live in the same town, it wouldn't be difficult to put the pieces together that there were at least 3 separate occasions of kids who had premonitions of their own deaths, and every single survivor of these tragic accidents are now dead. These guys don't want to go to the memorial service, but we should definitely go, because it's where we are most likely to find as many of the survivors all in one place before they all start dying. Now, at this point, we don't have enough information to figure out that death is going to hunt us down in any particular order, but we have good enough reason to think that we are all going to die in freak accidents, so the best thing to do is have as many eyes on everyone at all times to prevent it from happening. I would show them the research and convince them to wear cameras and earpieces, because they could die from anything at any time, and if we can see the signs that death is coming for them, then we might be able to alert them and help them escape the situation. It's definitely a positive to keep others alive, but my real motivation is to use the others to collect evidence of how death tries to kill them, so that I know what to look for when it decides to come after me. We need to be looking at the other survivors as a way to gain information, because the more we know about the threat, the better we will be at evading it for as long as possible. On the night of the memorial, the survivors attend the service to pay their respects. Nick here is leaving with his girlfriend when a security guard from the speedway stops them. He's about to ask the boyfriend how he knew about the crash before it happened, when another survivor confronts the man and blames the guard for letting his wife die. Calling him a racial slur, this man lets the guard know that he's coming after him for revenge. Back at home, Nick here is sleeping when he has a dream of a house with a red door and a metal hook and a huge ball of flames. Across town, the racist man drives to the security guard's house looking for revenge. He takes out a wooden cross from the back of his tow truck, but accidentally knocks the hook loose as it falls to the ground. Leaving it in the street, he starts digging a hole in the guard's lawn to put the cross in when a gust of wind blows his mirror ornament loose, turning on the radio. The sound vibrations from the music rattle these beer cans off the dashboard and onto the gear shift, knocking the truck out of park. The car drives off, and the man runs up to get inside, but the doors are locked shut and he has no way to stop it. Behind him, the truck's hook catches his legs and begins to drag him across the pavement. A gas canister spills out the back of his truck, and as a chain spark from the friction, the trail catches on fire. He's pulled across the street screaming as his whole body is engulfed in flames. Suddenly, the truck explodes on a fireball, sending the racist's head flying on the guard's lawn, charred to a crisp. That's 2 down and 7 to go. Okay, Nick here definitely should have seen this coming, because death showed him clues in a dream hours before any of this ever happened. This dream is vital information that we can't take for granted, because if we can use it to anticipate what will happen, then we might be able to prevent our deaths for as long as possible. The first clue from the dream is a red door with the address 617. There's no street name, but we could compile a list of addresses in the town with the same house number to discover if anyone we know might live in them. The next piece of information is a hook on a chain. At the memorial service, we saw that this angry redneck had a necklace with a hook on it. This would lead me to think the man might die at this address in the near future. This is a major advantage, because if we know in advance that the redneck is being targeted first, we can use him as a guinea pig and set a trap for death. If the remaining survivors contribute funding to build a bulletproof cage and lock him inside with no way for death to ever get in, we will learn some extremely useful information. Either death will skip him and kill the next victim, or it won't move on to someone else until the redneck is dead, which would be great for the rest of the survivors. The interesting thing is, Nick here has access to information that would support this strategy, because it's been used before by a former survivor of Flight 180 who was in the local news. She managed to evade death for over a year by locking herself into a mental asylum and only died by leaving the facility to help other survivors. The only difference in this case is that we're using the strategy against someone's will to observe how death will react to the situation. As cruel as it sounds, it would be hard for the redneck to argue with our methods, because he's already been targeted, and as soon as he's released from the prison we made for him, he'll be killed by death. If he stays alive for long enough, then we can confirm that death is governed by specific rules of who and when to kill, and we should keep the redneck imprisoned for as long as we can to stop death from ever getting to us next. The next morning, Lori here gets a call from her friend to turn on the news, and she watches a report about the redneck dying in a freak accident. She tells her boyfriend Nick to come look, and he's shocked when he recognizes the red door from his dream. That's when he suddenly has another vision, seeing scissors, a smoking cigarette, and a woman's eye. Realizing this is becoming a pattern, he tells his girlfriend that the dream he had last night was a vision with clues of how the redneck would die, and he's just had another. Someone else is going to get killed, but he has no idea who is next. Meanwhile, across town, one of the other survivors is at a beauty salon getting her hair cut, but death is already setting things in motion. The hairstylist offers her some water to drink and sets it aside on the dressing table, but the condensation moves an aerosol can towards a hot iron. The hairstylist is focused on the woman's hair and doesn't notice that above them, the fan is beginning to shake loose. Suddenly, her kids come running into the salon and slip on the floor, distracting the women. That's when the spray bottle overheats and rockets towards the fan, breaking it off the ceiling, and it comes crashing to the floor. Luckily, it misses the women, but death isn't done yet. After her appointment, she's about to leave the salon when the groundskeeper drives by in his lawnmower and sends a rock flying straight at the woman. The stone pierces through her eye, just like in Nick's vision, and that makes 3 down, with 6 more to go. Okay, death is starting to look pretty rusty here. It took several different attempts to kill this one woman who was sitting stationary in a barber's chair, and at this point, he's just starting to look unprofessional. With that kind of hit ratio, our survival chances have just gone way up, and that's great news for the rest of the survivors. As far as the rock that killed her, there's really no way to avoid this, and surprisingly, it's not an unprecedented scenario either. Ride-on lawnmowers kill an average of about 70 people each year, but as statistically unlikely as it is, she actually had a chance to survive. Now, this woman met Nick at the memorial earlier, and since Nick knew that she was one of the survivors, he could have warned her and the others that death was after them as soon as he found out. With this information, this entire scenario could have played out differently, and it all comes back to Tweedledee and Tweedledum here. As naughty as her 2 kids are, they're actually a blessing in disguise, because according to Nick's premonition, they never died in the accident, so they aren't on Death's kill list. She could have used her own children as a death-proof shield for any surprise attacks or freak occurrences. Death would have had to work a lot harder at finding an effective way to kill her, because it can't kill the kids yet if it's not their rightful time to die. If Death's own rules prevent him from killing people before it's their turn, then these 2 brats could have been this woman's strongest line of defense, and she can safely use them as shields to hide behind the rest of the way home. The next day, Nick and his friends find out about the mother's death and decide to meet up. He tells them about his visions, and the girlfriend shows them articles they found online. These past survivors had premonitions of tragic accidents before they happened, but every single one of them were killed in the same order they would have died in if they had never survived. They all realize the same is going to happen to them if they don't figure out how to stop it. The friends are freaked out and leave the apartment, but that's when Nick here gets another vision. He sees a flame shooting out of a blowtorch, a gas canister flying through the air, and a coil of wire. He's just been given clues about how someone else is going to die, but he realizes he might be able to figure out who's next. That night, they explore the racetrack to try and figure out who died in what order, but his memory isn't good enough to put the pieces together. Suddenly, the security guard grabs him from behind and demands to know why they're here. After explaining his vision, the guard shows him the surveillance footage from the day of the crash, and Nick here figures out the order the remaining survivors died in. The mechanic, his 2 friends, Janet and Hunt, the security guard, his girlfriend, and finally, himself. He suggests that they might be able to break this curse by saving the mechanic's life, but death is already one step ahead of them. The next day, they head to the garage where the mechanic works. The girlfriend tells him that 3 of the Speedway survivors have died in freak accidents, and they believe he's going to be next. Moving the conversation outside, he tells them that his wife died in the accident and he can't deal with this kind of superstition right now. But nobody realizes that death has already started a chain of events. In the garage, a can tips over and spills liquid onto a motorized winch. The cables start unwinding and the van it's connected to starts rolling backwards, stopping inches away from crushing the mechanic to death. The man walks away unscathed. But suddenly, the winch comes flying loose and breaks off the end of this gas tank. Launching forward, it slams the man into the mesh wire fence so hard that his body falls through the other side, and that makes it 4 down with 5 more to go. Okay, we have another rare opportunity to use someone as a guinea pig to test a theory that could help us all survive. We might be able to beat death at its own game by finding a way to die before it gets to us and then be resuscitated. With this in mind, we can meet the mechanic somewhere private and have someone sneak up to shock him with defibrillators to try stopping his heart. Now, it would actually be pretty difficult to achieve, and we would need to be lucky to pull it off, but it's still worth a try. First of all, to kill someone with a defibrillator, you have to create an arrhythmic heartbeat, but this can only be achieved through a carefully timed charge on what's called a T-wave in your normal heart rhythm. If the timing is successful, it produces a V-fib, which is a fatal rhythm, and they'll die. The next problem is that this can't be done through cloth or any thick body hair, so we'll need to pin him down and raise his shirt. Lastly, certain defibrillators won't release a shock if it senses a healthy heart without any arrhythmia, so we need to find the right kind for it to work. This is a lot working against us, but if we can pull it off, it might just save everyone's life. Death is a stickler for the rules, and once your heart stops, you're officially dead, so the life debt has been paid. Then we can bring him back with the defibrillators, and even though it's a high risk, we're already playing with borrowed time here. It's a worthwhile risk to take, and although death won't let you cheat him, we might still be able to win if we play by the rules. With another survivor dead, the security guard insists they have to warn the others, but Nick here has no idea who dies next. His friends Janet and Hunt died at the same time in his premonition, and the only solution he has is if they split up to try and save them both. Across town, Hunt here is about to answer the phone when a kid sprays him with water. Upset, he pushes the kid into the pool and steals his gun, throwing it behind this fence, but it switches on the pool's drain, and Hunt doesn't realize that he's just triggered his own death. Meanwhile, Janet here is going to the car wash to clean off her windshield when she suddenly gets a call from her friend Lori. She quickly tells her where she is before hanging up and enters with no idea that this is the cleanest death trap ever made. Passing through the grill brushes, her antenna gets ripped off and is sent flying to a power box, causing it to spark. Her car is stuck in place and the washers are trapping her on both sides, but that's when her car's electrics suddenly glitch and the sunroof begins to open. An overhead pipe bursts as a heavy stream of water falls into the vehicle and the car starts flooding with Janet inside. Forcing the sunroof wider, she squeezes her head through the crack but gets stuck when it suddenly closes on her neck. The power box sparks back on and pushes the vehicle through the tunnel towards a giant spinning washer that will rip the woman's head off. At the last second, she's rescued by the other survivors who drive their car in and push her out of harm's way. Lori here climbs on top of the vehicle and helps her friend out of the sunroof, getting her to safety before a giant pipe narrowly misses them. Back at the pool, Hunt is relaxing when a golf ball suddenly knocks his drink down and he drops his lucky coin. Seeing it fall into the water, he dives in to find it, but the drain suction drags him in and he can't push himself free. He's trapped at the bottom of the pool and no one can hear him scream. Nick finally arrives and calls out for his friend, but before he realizes where he is, the pressure from the pump reaches critical levels and his organs get sucked straight out of his body. That's 5 down and 4 more to go. Okay, as gruesome as it is, these types of accidents are a lot more common than you think. A pool's drain actually has a crazy amount of suction force, and it's even strong enough to pull an adult into its draft. Now, he would have drowned in under 3 minutes anyways, but as hopeless as this was, Janet here had plenty of opportunities to escape from her death trap without any help at all. Trying to exit through the sunroof was not a bad idea, but she didn't think things all the way through. Poking only your head out of a car limits your mobility, and the more logical thing to do is reach your arms out of the car first, because you can use the leverage to push yourself up and out. If the opening was too narrow, I also would have tried pushing with my feet to create more opposing force to open the sunroof further. Now, even if we assume none of this would have worked, there was still an excellent way for her to escape through the side window by using her car's seats. You can actually break through the glass by detaching the headrests, jamming the metal ends into the corner of the window frame, and pulling it back. This will help you crack the glass enough to shatter it and escape. It takes much less time and effort in comparison to kicking out the windshield, because car windows are made from tempered glass, so they're designed to hold up against blunt force trauma like kicking. Glass breakers can easily break through a car window because it concentrates the force applied to it into the smallest area possible, and while a headrest wasn't designed for this purpose, it will definitely get the job done. That night, the couple are death-proofing their home, but the girlfriend is freaked out. She knows that once the guard dies, she'll be next, and that's when a cold wind blows through the room. A cup of coffee is knocked over, spilling onto a newspaper and highlighting the words, "Through action, they were saved." Since they were able to save Janet, they think the message is a sign that the curse has been lifted. Going to the security guard's house to tell him the news, they walk in to find the man hanging from the ceiling. Suddenly, he starts choking and the rope breaks. When they ask him why he's doing this, he explains he's been trying to quit at life the entire day, but nothing has worked. Thinking that they're finally free from the curse, they decide to celebrate. But tomorrow, it's about to get so much worse. The next day, Nick here is cleaning up the apartment when the remote falls to the floor and the television turns on, showing a news report about the cowboy from the speedway who's been hospitalized since the crash. Suddenly, Nick gets another vision and he sees an ambulance, a dripping faucet, and a hospital's caduceus symbol. If there was another survivor, then he's next in death's order, and that means they're all still cursed. Getting into the car, he calls the security guard, telling him to meet him at the hospital. Meanwhile, the cowboy is lying in his bed when he feels droplets hitting his face and looks up to find the ceiling is filling with water. He tries to call the nursing staff, but he's suddenly shocked and knocks the call button off his bed, leaving him no way to get help. Nick and the security guard finally find the cowboy in his hospital room, but before they can help him, a bathtub from the floor above falls to the ceiling and crushes the man to death. That's 6 down and only 4 more to go. Okay, this is a lot to take in. None of them knew that this cowboy was one of the survivors, and the fact that he was still alive was the only reason that the security guard couldn't take life's backdoor exit. This is actually a big deal, because it's clearly revealed one of Death's best loopholes to use to our advantage. All of this tells us that if you've cheated Death and it's not yet your turn to die, you can't die. I would want to learn just exactly how bulletproof we are, how falls from great heights might affect us, and anything else we can think of testing. Doing a little research in the name of science to define the boundaries of this loophole is going to tell us a lot more clearly what we can and cannot do, and how to use it to our advantage. Now, what's interesting here is that the only reason the security guard is unkillable is because the cowboy is still alive. So if I were in this position, I would be trying to save this guy at all costs. If we're not allowed to die, then fate would not be allowed to kill us. And since a massive tub falling onto our bodies would definitely kill us, then once I decide to jump in to save his life, we create a new predetermined outcome that the tub of water never falls, because it cannot kill me before my time to die. With this death curse, we can essentially overwrite another predetermined outcome with our own, and that's a superpower any Marvel hero would be jealous of. We can basically live life in complete defiance of risk for the benefit of finding new and more dangerous ways to cheat death. For example, by saving other people who would have died without your intervention, we can find regular civilians and turn them into survivors, which adds them into the kill order to be hunted down by Death. If this was the case, then they would most likely be added onto the list after you, but we also learned that Death will skip you if someone saves your life, and that puts you right back at the end of the line again, but this time, the line is much longer. Leaving the hospital, Nick here is crossing the street with the security guard to go look for the girls, when an ambulance suddenly comes out of nowhere and runs the man over. Nick is completely shocked by the guard's death, and realizes the vision he had earlier was for both the cowboy and the security guard. That's 7 down, with only 3 more to go. Racing to find his girlfriend, he drives to the mall when he notices an advertisement for the movie the girls are going to watch, and suddenly has a vision of rotating gears, nails flying through the air, and a massive explosion at a movie theater. He knows his friends are in immediate danger, and he'll do whatever it takes to rescue them, but it might already be too late. In a construction site, the crew is headed to lunch, but none of them notice a beam of sunlight hitting a pile of sawdust. Carried by the wind, a loose tarp hooks into a switch and turns on a massive fan that sends this cart rolling forward. Spilling a trail of turpentine, it leads straight to the theater that Laurie and Janet are in, and nobody has a clue. A fire starts behind the screen, and it's only a matter of time before the whole place is up in flames. Nick finds the girls in the theater and tells them the security guard is dead. Laurie gets up to leave, but Janet refuses to go with them and doesn't want to run from her fate anymore. The couple leave her behind in the theater, and moments later, she gets a front row seat to a massive explosion. Everyone in the building starts evacuating in a panic as the fire erupts out of the theaters, and the last 2 survivors run down an escalator to escape them all. They get halfway down when a column falls straight onto the escalator, exposing the grinding gears below them. He tries to hold on to his girlfriend, but there's no escape. Her leg gets caught, and the woman is crushed to death. But to Nick's surprise, he's suddenly pulled out of a vision, and he's back at the hospital like nothing ever happened. It was another premonition, and he realizes there's still a chance to save his girlfriend before it all happens again. Okay, this is a golden opportunity that will never come again. So far, Nick here has seen 2 types of premonitions. There are the clues he gets for the survivors locked in the death order, and then there are the visions where he lives through a disaster before it ever happens. This premonition gives him an extremely rare chance to save more people who he knows are going to die soon and cheat death on a much larger scale. Since the disaster he's trying to stop happens inside of a shopping mall, he could pull on a fire alarm and evacuate the building, which would save the lives of everyone who was supposed to die in the movie theater explosion. Tons of people would then be cheating death, and they would all be added to death's kill list. This is great news, because now there are a lot more people that must be killed before you, and it gives us time to enjoy our lives. With his second chance, the boyfriend runs for the mall and slips into the construction site where he finds the burning cart next to the flammable barrels. He grabs a fire extinguisher and tries to spray the flames out, but he runs out of gas. Frustrated, he throws it away and breaks a table leg, tipping it forward. The boyfriend starts stomping the flames out, but a loose ember floats over to another pile of sawdust and sets it on fire just as the nail gun falls into the ground. It starts shooting holes in the flammable barrels, but Nick's arm gets hit and he's pinned to the wall. The liquid from the barrel starts leaking and flowing towards the open flames, but Nick here gets a clever idea. He pulls a long plank of wood towards himself and uses its lit end to turn on the fire sprinklers. As the room sprays with water, the flames are put out, and Nick here has saved his friends, having finally broken the curse. 2 weeks later, the boyfriend meets with the other survivors at a coffee shop. Nobody has seen anything strange since Nick saved them at the mall. They all think they've beaten death, but when he looks down, he sees a message scratched into the table. That's when he realizes nothing has changed. This was always a part of Death's final plan, and all of a sudden they look out the window to find a semi-truck crashing into them before they even had a chance to leave a tip. If you survived your own death, only to have death hunt you down and kill you and your friends one by one, what would you do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat death in Final Destination 5. This group of people is about to die a brutal death. Sam here is attending a company retreat with his co-workers and his ex-girlfriend Molly when their bus is stopped by construction workers doing repair work. Sam thinks this is a normal stop with no idea that the bridge is about to collapse and he's going to be killed in a freak accident. Sam feels an eerie gust of wind run through him as the bus stops. He accidentally gets cut by a metal shard on the sheet and the bus's radio malfunctions. He knows something isn't right, and Sam asks his best friend Peter if he felt the bridge shake, but he didn't. Freaked out, the man looks outside the front window to see that the bridge is starting to collapse. Terrified, the man grabs his ex-girlfriend's hand and runs out of the bus, but they're trapped as the bridge falls all around them. One of Sam's co-workers, Candace, falls from the bridge to her death on top of a ship's mast. Scared out of his mind, the man runs towards safety with his ex-girlfriend and his best friend as their bus falls to the water, killing Isaac, another one of their co-workers. Sam, Molly, and Peter run towards safety, but they must dodge crowds, parked cars, falling pavement, and suspension lines. Suddenly, a large chunk of the bridge falls in front of them, trapping them, but the man finds a metal beam attaching the two sides of the bridge and guides his ex-girlfriend across into safety. Before walking over the beam, Sam helps another one of his co-workers, Olivia, across, but the pavement abruptly shifts, and Olivia slides off of the beam into the water. A car then falls from the bridge above her, crushing her. Another co-worker, Nathan, runs towards Sam to safety, but is impaled by a swinging suspension wire. Shortly after, Sam's boss, Dennis, runs in the same direction, but falls when the pavement cracks and clings to the side of the bridge. A giant vat of tar tips over as the bridge shifts and falls directly on the boss, killing him instantly. Death is making this bridge its hunting ground, and as people run towards safety, Sam realizes his life is in extreme danger. Sam and Peter are the last two left, and they have no other choice but to jump from the bridge to safety. They land on a railing barely hanging onto the other side of the bridge and cling to it, but it won't be enough to save them. Metal poles from a construction truck slide from the bed and pierce the best friend through his face. Moments later, a sheet of metal falls, slicing Sam's body in half, but just before he dies, Sam finds himself back on the bus as if nothing ever happened, killing everyone but Molly and ending Sam's premonition. Okay, this is absolutely terrifying. People are falling to their deaths all around Sam, the bridge is collapsing, and swinging suspension wires are killing people left, right, and center. But there's something Sam here can do to have a greater chance at surviving. No matter what Sam does, the bridge is falling all around him, and he is in the middle of it. It's better that he controls when and where he's going to land by jumping into the water, rather than falling amongst rubble that could crush him at any moment. Now, normally jumping from the bridge's height would not be recommended. A jump from 100 meters or more makes the water tension equal to concrete, and dying on impact is very likely. However, Olivia here has just fallen and didn't die. Her fatal mistake was falling too close to the bridge. Therefore, we have to accept that the rules of this world operate differently than our own, and use this to our advantage. If it were me, I would first wait to see if anyone else jumps and makes it. If others are able to make it without being killed, I would try to use different diving strategies to increase the likelihood I'll walk away from this alive. I would grab a piece of wreckage like a car door or tire to pad my fall. Doing this is called wreckage ride, and is a tactic that has been used by plane crash survivors falling from even greater heights. Using the piece of wreckage helps disrupt the amount of impact my body will take by allowing the tire or wreckage to absorb the fall. Parachuters whose chutes have failed have also successfully reduced the impact of their body by minimizing the surface area that will hit the water. This means if we keep our arms and legs as tight to our bodies as possible, we can suffer less damage. Now, Candace's death here draws attention to the fact that there's a boat in the water manned by someone in order for it to be moving at all. The boat that Candace falls on is moving beneath the bridge when she dies. Moments later, when the bus falls from the bridge and kills Isaac, the boat has already crossed over beneath it. At this point, the railing to the left of Sam, Molly, and Peter has yet to fall, leaving them enough time and room to jump safely on that side. If it were me, I would jump from this railing, and once I'm in the water, I would swim away from the bridge and towards the boat to decrease my chances of being killed by rubble. It also doesn't make any sense that Sam and his co-workers walk across the bridge one at a time. The beam is already holding an entire bridge, and even though the bridge is crumbling, technically the beam is already holding everyone's weight. It's steel, and several humans aren't going to suddenly snap it. If it collapses, it's because the entire bridge is going to collapse. Sam could have saved their lives if they thought this through, but now they've cheated death and are going to regret it. Confused, Sam looks around the bus and tries to make sense of the situation, but the same events start to unfold. Realizing that they're all going to die, Sam stands up, grabs Molly's hand, and tells everyone that they have to get off the bus immediately. His ex-girlfriend follows him, but the others hesitate. They think he's totally lost his mind, and his friends only leave to see if they can convince him to come back. But just then, the bridge begins to collapse and crumble, as Sam had predicted, and everyone is shocked. Sam and his friends escape in the nick of time, but the rest of their co-workers fall to their tragic death. That night, Sam is questioned by the FBI. He's asked how he knew about the bridge collapsing before it happened, and the agent insinuates that he must have had something to do with it in order for him to know what was going to happen beforehand. After being presented with overwhelming evidence that the collapse was a freak accident, Sam is released and free to go. Later, Sam and his remaining colleagues attend a memorial service for their deceased co-workers. They're still shocked that Sam knew the bridge was going to collapse and ask him how he knew, but he's still unable to give them a satisfying answer. As they leave, Sam and Peter are warned by a creepy coroner that Death doesn't like to be cheated. The two men are confused and try to figure out what he's talking about, but he doesn't give them any more information. They let him go, but Sam and Peter are soon going to find out exactly what he meant. Okay, this is not good. Sam already cheated Death once. He was able to see his own death exactly as it happened, and now he has an extremely creepy man saying cryptic things to him about dying at the funeral of his dead co-workers. Instead of tossing this up to a weird interaction with a creepo trying to scare me, I wouldn't let the coroner go and would have to interrogate him to see what else I can find out. It's already pretty obvious that something supernatural is happening, but because that sounds ridiculous, it makes sense that the man and his best friend want to pretend the whole thing was a terrible coincidence. If it were me, I would interrogate the coroner further and would learn that not only has this happened before, but it's happened multiple times. Near-death experiences are not uncommon occurrences in real life. The National Library of Medicine reports that 17% of those who nearly die experience what is referred to as an NDE. These NDEs can range from witnessing one's own death to having full-blown out-of-body experiences. Parapsychologists and quantum physicists such as Brian Josephson, a physicist that was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1973, have been hard at work trying to explain these events. Studies in quantum biology have shown that what is referred to as entanglement between photons is also present in living systems such as bacteria and potentially the human brain, which could explain what is called crisis telepathy, aka premonitions. What's important here is that both scientists and everyday people have reported that this can happen, which means that what happened to Sam was a real psychic event and not just a coincidence. Therefore, there is a chance he can trigger a premonition again. Since having a premonition is what saved him the last time, being able to see how and when he's going to die before death strikes would be essential to his survival. Psychics and clairvoyants are of the belief that only certain people have the ability to tap into the supernatural, and if they have done it once, they can do it again. Since Sam is one of those people, he should use this to his advantage. If it were me, I would go to a well-regarded psychic and first test them to see if they are real. If they say I'm going to die, then I will know they are legitimate and will pay them to teach me how to connect with my psychic abilities and bring on these premonitions. To be extra cautious, I would adopt a cat and take it everywhere with me, because based on ancient Egyptian beliefs, cats have a special relationship with death and can anticipate when someone is going to die. Even though this sounds ridiculous and would probably ruin my social life, when death is on the line, it's better to be superstitious than sorry. Sam returns to his normal life, but instead of working at the paper company, decides to pursue his passion of becoming a chef. He's offered a residency in Paris, but decides he doesn't want to leave before he figures out whether he can still make things work with his ex-girlfriend. He goes to her house to ask why she broke up with him, and he realizes that she still has feelings for him after she reveals that she broke up with him because she doesn't want to ruin his chances at Paris. Meanwhile, Peter goes to Candace's last gymnastics practice before a competition. She's agitated and complains that she's nervous, but Peter reassures her that everything is going going to be fine. To make matters worse, the AC in the gym isn't working, and a fan with a faulty wire is brought in to replace it. Overhead fans have also been turned all the way up to keep the gymnast cool. The gymnast performs a superstitious luck ritual by twirling rubber bands around her wrist before going on the mat. She accidentally snaps one of them and freaks out. She pauses and feels the same eerie feeling Sam felt before the bus drove over the bridge. Candace chooses to ignore it and begins her performance, but little does she know this is a decision that will get her killed. A screw from one of the overhead fans comes loose and falls onto the beam. Unknowingly, the gymnast dances around it, barely missing it, and dismounts the beam without error. She lands dangerously close to the faulty fan wire that now sits in a pool of water that dripped down from the overhead fan. Luckily, she walks away scot-free, but death is about to make its final move. Candace mounts the high bar where a screw loosens on the left-hand side. The combination of traps she's already evaded forces another gymnast to trip and fall, sending chalk into Candace's face as she releases her hands from the high bar. She flies through the air, unable to see how and where she's going to land, and this time, rather than dismounting gracefully, Candace lands upside down, breaking her neck, back, and pretty much everything else. That's one death down, with 9 more to go. Later at the gym, Sam arrives to console Peter, who tries to make sense of Candace's death. Over Peter's shoulder, Sam thinks he spot the coroner again from the memorial service, but he disappears before Sam can confront him. Okay, now athletes get the jitters from time to time, but Candace has just survived a supernatural experience where Sam also had a bad feeling before acting on it in order to survive. Doing the same here and leaving would have been the smart move. This is a hard situation to be in because Candace has nothing to base her fear off of other than a feeling and a broken rubber band. However, what's superstition other than intuition with an unknown cause and effect? Having just survived a near-death experience, Candace is ignoring her intuition at her own peril. If it were me, I would track down a new set of rubber bands and see if the same thing happens again. This might sound silly, but at the end of the day, pre-game rituals are a major part of professional athletes' routines when getting ready to perform. According to a study published in the International Review of Sport and Exercise Psychology, pre-game rituals are not just about superstitions, but can boost an athlete's overall performance. These rituals help reduce anxiety and make the athlete feel they are in more control of the situation. It also allows a couple more seconds for the athlete to narrow their focus and prepare for the task regardless of how simple or complex the ritual is. Twirling her rubber bands effectively may have helped Candace get in the right headspace before performing her routine. Death may have been out to get her, but at the end of the day, it was human error that made her release the high beam too soon. Chalk had just been blown into her face, and if she had held on for a couple moments longer, she would have been able to dismount without anything obscuring her vision. In the case of the band had snapped again, that should have been a surefire way to hang up her unitard and call it a day. Sam and Peter are also ignoring their intuition here. Not only have they survived a freak accident, but now another horrible freak accident has claimed the life of Peter's girlfriend. The term freak accident has been used to describe both events in a very short period of time. The whole point and definition of freak accidents is that they are highly unlikely and occur under unlikely circumstances. This is another situation where they should lean into their intuition and try to chase down the coroner to get more answers about the connection between these two instances. But instead, like Candace, they ignore these signs and choose to chalk it up to the unexplainable. Sam heads to the Prestige paper office to clear out his things, along with Molly, Peter, and Olivia. On the other side of the office, Isaac shifts through deceased co-workers' drawers. He pricks his finger on a thumbtack while looking through a drawer and finds a gift card to a massage parlor. He pockets the gift card and heads out of the office. The group cracks open a few beers and a bottle of whiskey when Olivia gets a text from a friend telling her that they have arrived to take her to an eye doctor's appointment. As she's about to leave, her bag hits a picture frame off of her desk and onto the floor. She picks it up and notices that the glass is broken on her face. It's a creepy coincidence, but it's not enough to stop Olivia from going to her appointment. Isaac arrives at the massage parlor and proceeds to hit on the front desk attendant, who sends him back to a room and assigns him an older Chinese masseuse that pretends not to speak English. The masseuse puts acupuncture needles all over him and leaves him to sleep for 30 minutes, but that's when Death decides to make its next move. While Isaac lays on the massage bed, a fire breaks out in his room and a bottle of antiseptic alcohol falls on the floor. Worried, Isaac tries to call out for help, but the wheel of his bed breaks and he falls off the massage table. The acupuncture needles pierce his skin and he's left alone to lay in the alcohol, unconscious as the fire grows. Panicked, he comes to and tries to pull a needle from his skin. Just as Isaac reaches the door to leave, his phone vibrates on the other side of the room. He pauses to look at it, and this gives Death enough time to tip a candle next to the phone onto the floor, igniting the alcohol. Isaac is thrown back by the flames, and even though the fire doesn't quite reach him, the impact of hitting the wall dislodges a shelf above him, and a Buddha statue tumbles down, crushing his skull. That's 2 deaths down, with 8 more to go. Back at the office, Peter learns about Isaac's death and tells Sam and Molly. The co-workers go to the scene of the accident, and there they see the creepy coroner. Horrified by Isaac's brutal death at the massage parlor, the co-workers finally start to catch on that there's something abnormal about all of these deaths. Sam finally approaches the coroner, and he explains that by not dying on the bridge, they broke death's rules and created a wrinkle in reality. That means that death is going to hunt them down and kill them one by one until the score is finally settled. That is, unless they decide to kill someone in their place. Okay, so not 1 but 2 of Sam's co-workers have died in crazy freak accidents, and now he knows for a fact that Death is out to get him. Not only that, but there's a set of rules that Death is playing by that he hasn't been filled in on yet. The good news is as long as he can figure out what these rules are, 2 can play at any game. First, I would look at the events that have transpired so far to help me better understand what Death's tells are and how we can anticipate its next move. Based on what the coroner has told me, Death is an entity that can comprehend when reality is unbalanced. Death can also make mistakes. The fact that we're alive proves that it can be beaten. I would then collect the autopsy and coroner's report, both of which are available to the public under the Open Records Act. Presage paper is also located in New York State, which means that we can get access to non-confidential police reports by filling a FOIL request. Once I review these files, I'll realize that there's a pattern in the ways these deaths have been carried out. The coroner's report would reveal that Isaac was pierced by acupuncture needles, and the room around him was on fire, but neither of those things killed him. Candace's death was brought on by a deadly dismount from the high bar, but only moments before she was able to dance around the same screw her teammate stepped on. The police report would reveal that a faulty wire was exposed to a puddle of water right in the middle of the mat. Both times, Death laid multiple traps for its victims before they were actually killed. From this information, we can conclude that Death has a plan A, B, C, and maybe even a Z to kill us, but we have a short window of time in between when Death shows up and when we are killed. Studying Death's tells will help us utilize the short window of time to escape Death. The problem that Candace and Isaac both had is that they didn't know Death was out to get them or what signs to look for. Sam's premonition allowed him to realize that Death was right around the corner after he accidentally pricked his finger on a shard of metal and heard the radio malfunction. Seeing the signs and patterns of Death can help us know what it can use against us and develop a sixth sense for it. Parents are exceptionally good at this when it comes to protecting their children. They're able to see danger around every corner in a room, every wire on the ground, and every dangerous object before a child interacts with it. This is due to the fact that after a mother gives birth, activity in the amygdala portion of the brain grows in the weeks and months after she gives birth. An enhanced amygdala makes the mother hypersensitive to these dangers. This hypersensitivity can also be developed over time in men from day-to-day caregiving. If we spend time day in and day out training ourselves to pick up on these dangers, as more and more of our coworkers become Death's victims, we can train our amygdala to be hypersensitive to the specific signs. This is also commonly referred to as fear conditioning. Sam tells the group that based on what the coroner has just told them, Molly is safe from death because he was able to save her from dying on the bridge. Peter grows angry at this because he can't understand why Sam would choose to save Molly above everyone else. Across town, Olivia gets surgery on her eyes to correct her eyesight. Frightened, the doctor gives Olivia a teddy bear to hold as he straps her into the laser eye machine. Unfortunately for Olivia, this teddy bear isn't going to provide any comfort at all. Nervous, Olivia rips the teddy bear's eyes from its socket when the doctor realizes that his assistant has given him an incomplete file. He leaves Olivia in the room alone, with only the one-eyed teddy bear to keep her company. Outside in the hallway, a water cooler bubbles, tipping over a glass of water Olivia placed on it before entering the operating room. The cup of water splashes onto an electrical outlet with a plug that leads into the room and to the laser eye machine. The machine malfunctions, and Olivia calls out for help, but nobody can hear her panicked cries. Olivia reaches for the emergency stop button, but instead tips over the machine's remote and turns the laser on. A beam shoots out of the machine and lasers Olivia straight in the eye. She struggles to remove her head from the device and tries to shield herself from the laser, but instead it carves into her palm. Worried, Sam and Molly arrive at the optometrist's office and hear Olivia screaming. They barge into the operating room and arrive just in time to see Olivia finally break free from the machine and trip on the discarded teddy bear eye. She loses her balance and falls out the glass window onto a car and to her death. That's 3 deaths down, with 7 more to go. Later, the FBI agent that has been following Sam shows up, and after collecting information from the doctor's office, reveals that it would have taken at least 5 different systems to have failed in order for the machine to malfunction. Okay, interestingly, Olivia's death played out as elaborately as both Candace and Isaac's did, further validating the theory that there is time to escape death after we see it is out to get us. Like Candace and Isaac, Olivia chose to ignore a minor inconvenience paired with an eerie feeling and paid the cost with her life. For Olivia, her minor inconvenience came in the form of the broken picture, but since she hasn't done any research, she wasn't able to read the sign when it was presented to her. However, based on the optometrist's observations, it would have been difficult even for the doctor to have anticipated something was going going to go wrong. If I were Sam and Molly, and I were trying to warn Olivia that death is on its way to kill her, I would first call the doctor's office in order to stop the procedure from happening. Sam and Molly clearly know where Olivia is since they head there from the massage parlor. I would look up the office's number on the internet or in a phone book and warn Olivia ahead of time. Olivia is already scared to do the procedure, so it shouldn't take long to convince her to not go through with it. I would tell the front desk that it was an emergency, and once I have Olivia on the phone, I would tell her my mom had the same procedure and died from it. She might think it's a prank if I tell her that death is coming to settle a supernatural score, so instead, I would convince her that I'm genuinely concerned about the surgery. Sam and Molly waste their time going to the hospital in person. If I were Olivia and a doctor left me alone with my head strapped to a faulty machine, and I wasn't able to get loose, I would look for ways to break the machine. Sure, I might have to pay for it later, but it's better than having lost an eye or even worse, dying. I would first reach down and take off my shoe and use the heel to stab the glass laser until it's completely destroyed. I would also punch and kick at the body of the machine wherever my arms and legs could reach it in order to push the laser beam away. I would then take my other shoe and I would throw it against the operating room door or out the glass window to draw attention to myself earlier. Olivia completely panics and the machine destroys her instead of her destroying it. At this point, we also know that Molly is getting out of the situation scot-free since she didn't die in the premonition. Since we now know that we have the option to kill someone in her place and Peter is acting irate, it's hard to know what lengths he might be willing to go in order to live. Since Sam is a man on borrowed time, he's safe from his co-workers and can stay in their presence no matter how unhinged they get. However, I would get Molly on the next plane out of the country on a little vacation so none of them get any crazy ideas about killing her and stealing her life. Nothing says relaxing quite like escaping death for a second time. The FBI agent asks the co-workers if they know what's causing the deaths, and they explain to the agent that they think death is out to get them after surviving the collapsing bridge. Not knowing what to believe but having no better explanation, the FBI agent leaves them alone. Having reconciled, Sam and Molly go home together. Sam then stays up all night trying to find clues to how these deaths are working, and finally puts the pieces together that everyone is dying in the order they died in his premonition. But this knowledge has come too late. Death has already set plans into motion to find Nathan as Sam realizes he's next on the list. At the factory, Nathan reviews Roy's timesheet, where he has written "F you" in big bold letters. Annoyed, Nathan calls Roy to meet him at the control room, but before Roy gets there, Nathan looks down at how high up they are from the ground. He pauses and notices that a crane near them has faulty wiring that's about to snap. Instead of moving, Roy arrives outside of the control room, and he and Nathan argue, and as the argument grows more heated, the crane begins to move closer to them until it's over their heads. Nathan notices that at any moment, if they don't move, it will come crashing down on them. He tries to warn him, but Roy doesn't listen. Nathan shoves him beneath the hook, sending the man flying down towards the factory floor, and only to be stopped by the hook spearing him straight through the head. Roy dies in Nathan's place, and that's 4 deaths down, with 6 more to go. Peter, who has grown increasingly unhinged, tries to warn his boss about Death's vendetta, but this plan backfires. Instead of believing him, Dennis calls the FBI to report on this suspicious activity and follows Peter down to the factory floor, where Sam and Molly have arrived to warn Nathan about Death's list. Peter is hell-bent on figuring out whether or not Nathan killed Roy on purpose and interrogates him. Eventually, Nathan admits that deep down he must have done it on purpose, and the co-workers wonder if this means that Nathan will live like the coroner told them. Just then, a wrench tips close to a spinning mechanism and sends the wrench flying straight into Dennis's head, killing him on impact, and confirming the coroner's theory that if one of the survivors kills another person, they will take their place on Death's list, and Death will skip over the survivor. That's 5 deaths down, with 5 more to go. Sam chooses to return to work and take his chances, rather than kill someone, but by doing nothing, there are options he's overlooking. Okay, Nathan killing Roy and Death skipping him is a game changer. Not only does this mean that Nathan doesn't have to die, but we now know for a fact that there are actually ways Death's rules can be bent or broken. However, trying to kill someone is messy. Not only because Sam could get caught and spend the years he's now gained in jail, but the question of who to kill is a heavy one that is riddled with nuances that could affect his lifespan regardless of if he actually goes through with it. For example, if Sam kills someone on death row, does he get all of that person's years because the person is being killed by other humans before their time? Or is this a part of the individual's fate? The same can be said for going to war. If Sam killed a bunch of people in combat, were these people always destined to die? And if so, that doesn't help him, and only increases his lifespan for a little bit longer. The details around how the killing someone theory works is not clear, and if you think about it logically, the safest bet in this scenario would be killing someone very young, so you acquire as many years as possible. That would mean Sam would have to go the rest of his life a murderer, knowing he killed someone innocent, which is not good either. Rather than go down the rabbit hole of deciding who to kill, I would try to trap Peter in a death-proof environment like a mental institution situation to keep death from getting him. Since we all survived death, we evaded the natural order of things, and therefore death can only get us in an unnatural way. If we isolate Peter in a chamber like a bubble boy where he will be protected from physical harm for the rest of his life, then no one else will be in danger of dying. Saving someone by trapping Peter also calls into question two other theories worth exploring. Since my existence is considered a wrinkle in reality, if I save a bunch of people, death will also have to try to kill them too in order to bring about the natural order of things. The same thing is true for if I have children. If I have a ton of kids, they are technically innocent from death's game since they don't have a predestined death, but they also aren't supposed to be alive either. Therefore, if I become a doctor and save a bunch of people, or donate to a sperm bank, this will increase the amount of work that death has to do in order to erase my existence from reality. I could take this tactic a step further and also become an organ donor. By distributing my non-essential organs to different people, I'll have saved more people and also distributed parts of myself to other people's bodies. If these people were always supposed to receive transplants, my organ being in their body complicates the fabric of reality even more, since I was not supposed to be alive to give it to them. This keeps the person from getting the organ they were supposed to receive. But if they were never supposed to die in the first place, this creates another conundrum for death that can only be concluded with their natural death. By doing this, I can hopefully throw off Death's plans even more until he's so exhausted, he'll wait until the next century to try to set things right. Before going to work, Sam tells Molly to meet him at the restaurant after closing time. All around Sam, he sees opportunities for Death to kill him, but luckily, it's not his time. He makes it through his shift unscathed and tells the head chef he will take him up on his offer for the Paris residency. He brings Molly dessert and tells her the good news, but they are disrupted by Peter, who stands outside the restaurant window. Sam welcomes him in, but he's soon going to realize this was a huge mistake. Peter looks like he's seen better days. He tells him that he's been up all night thinking over whether he can kill someone. He had plenty of opportunities, but came to the conclusion that he had to kill someone that deserved to die. Peter pulls a gun on Molly, having decided that it doesn't make sense she's the only one that gets to live from the bridge. Sam throws a table in front of Peter as he fires the gun, and both Sam and Molly run to the kitchen to hide. He tries to distract him, but Peter isn't interested in Sam, since he is also a man on borrowed time. The best friend shoots a gas tank, releasing flammable gas into the air, and knocks the man unconscious. He starts to turn on the stoves to blow up the building, and Molly tries to arm herself with a knife, but as she turns to look for Peter, the FBI agent suddenly turns the corner. He's been following them ever since the accident, and entered the restaurant when he heard the gunshot. Molly warns him that Peter has a gun, but it's too late. The man fires, killing the agent and taking his life. With the agent standing in for Peter, that's 6 deaths down and 4 more to go. Having just committed murder, Death moves on from Peter to Sam, but Peter isn't done with Molly just yet. Even though he has the agent's ears, he doesn't want to risk being turned in, and tries to kill Molly again, making it clear they still got beef to settle. Death could kill Sam at any moment now, but instead of laying low and trying to avoid sharp kitchen objects, Sam jumps on Peter. He strikes Peter with a pan, setting the gun flying onto a lit stove. The two men fight, throwing kitchen objects at one another, and after Peter shoves Sam's head into a vat of grease, he gets the upper hand. Molly jumps on Peter, but he quickly throws her off of him. He picks up a kitchen knife and prepares to kill her once and for all, but unbeknownst to Peter, Sam has picked up a spear and stabs it through Peter's chest. That's 7 deaths down, with 3 more to go. Okay, Peter is on the warpath, and it seems like nothing is going to stop him from killing Molly. Sam does a good job of fighting Peter off, but there's something he could do when Peter first pulls out the gun to try to end the fight quicker. Sam knows from earlier in his shift that Death isn't coming for him. There were multiple opportunities for it to kill him, but it didn't. Since Sam knows this, rather than hiding Molly in the kitchen, I would go on the offensive and attack Peter from the get-go. Even though Peter has a gun, it's essentially useless against me, since Death isn't trying to kill me right now, and I might as well take advantage of this opportunity to play the part of Superman while I still can. Death is also after Peter, so there's a higher likelihood that I'll be able to kill him when I fight back against him. Although Sam doesn't want to kill anyone, Peter has shown up with a gun and wants to kill his girlfriend, so the time to act is now. Rather than draw Peter back to the kitchen where there are plenty of opportunities to find new weapons, I would push Peter through the glass window behind him. If this doesn't kill him, then it will at least draw attention to us, and others will notice there's a man with a gun trying to kill me. Jim Block, the FBI agent, is outside watching us and can help me, but even if he wasn't, this will be the right move. By bringing the fight outside, it increases the chances of someone calling the police or Peter getting scared off by the potential of jail. Once the gun is taken away from Peter, there isn't anything else outside for him to defend himself with either. Peter dies from his stab wounds, and the lights flicker above Sam and Molly. The gun in the stove goes off, and the bullet barely misses Sam. They conclude this means Sam took the life Peter stole from the FBI agent, and he has now gained those years. 2 weeks later, thinking they are safe, Sam and Molly board a flight to Paris. An unruly passenger is removed from the plane, but it takes off without any issues. continues. Sam puts on his music and realizes it's the same song that played when the bridge collapsed. Panicked, Sam removes his headphones and notices the fastened seatbelt lights blinking. He realizes that nothing has actually changed and death is still after him. His thumb cuts on a piece of metal and he overhears the flight attendant say the unruly passenger left because he had a panic attack and thought it was a vision. Just then, Sam looks out the window and watches as the jet engine explodes, tearing holes in the plane and ripping Molly out into the air into a brutal death. Sam then dies a gruesome and horrifying death as the plane catches on fire and he is burnt alive, making that 9 deaths down with 1 more to go. Not one to be beaten, death sends the wheel of Sam's plane into the roof of Roy's memorial service, killing Nathan and sending the last of the Prestige Paper co-workers on one final retreat. That's all 10 deaths down with no survivors.
It's a scary fact that over 200,000 people in the United States are taken out by fatal accidents every year. I mean, that's one person every 2.5 minutes, right? But if you could see death coming before it happened, do you think that you could stop it? And what if that only made the situation 1,000 times worse? You already know this one's a banger, and it's got some of the most hilariously brutal freak accidents that you'll ever see, so we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and why you can't beat death in Final Destination Bloodlines. Welcome to the Skyview restaurant, where tonight's dish is sudden death, served at 500 feet. It's springtime 1968, and this young fella Paul here has a big surprise planned for his girlfriend Iris. Removing her blindfold, she sees that they've arrived at the newly built Skyview Tower, and excited, they quickly take the elevator all the way to the top, but that was their biggest mistake. The couple heads to the observation platform where Paul gets down on one knee and pops the question. But the whole time, this little twerp keeps throwing pennies off the tower until one of them finally gets sucked back through the vent and ends up getting stuck against a fan. Meanwhile, the happy couple hits the dance floor, but that's when the Grim Reaper decides to crash the party. All of a sudden, the glass floor gives out right underneath them, and instantly sending a dozen people plummeting to their deaths, including her fiance Paul. In the chaos, a woman catches on fire and runs past the broken vent, igniting a cloud of gas that vaporizes half the restaurant in a giant fireball. Iris barely manages to survive, but the staircase crumbles before she can reach it, and the elevator drops out a moment later, leaving her trapped with no way to get down. Finally, the entire restaurant topples over as this girl dives for safety, holding on with nothing but her engagement ring. But the skin on her finger eventually peels off, sending her plummeting 500 feet to the ground, where she's impaled straight through the mouth by a steel spike. And that's when her granddaughter Stefani wakes up screaming in the middle of class, revealing that it was all just a dream all along. Alright, this she's got some issues. Now, we come to find out later that this accident really happened. Kinda. But we'll get to that part soon enough. What's obvious here is that Destiny wanted Iris dead, and if she wanted to survive this, then she would have had to outsmart death itself, which is why they should have immediately turned around the minute they learned the tower was finished, 5 months ahead of schedule. And you know, while we're at it, let's compare the Seattle Space Needle, the most similar real-world structure at the time, which was built as the centerpiece of the 1962 World's Fair. Despite being treated as a matter of national importance, they barely got it finished in time, so the only possible way they finished the Skyview so quickly is if they greased the palms of a couple safety inspectors and cut some corners when it came to their materials. Plus, it's only opening night, and they've already exceeded their capacity so badly that they couldn't honor Paul's dinner reservation. Towers like the Skyview have incredibly strict capacity limits for very obvious reasons, so after hearing that, the best thing that they could have done was turn the hell around while they still had the chance. But if Destiny put them on that dance floor, then it's a good thing that Iris moved when she did, because anyone who was stuck out there when it broke never even stood a chance. Now, the sight of the accident triggered an instant fear response in the crowd, causing them to panic and stampede towards the exit, and with only 2 ways to get down, you need to act fast and choose wisely. In these kind of situations, it's always better to go for the stairs because the elevator might as well be a death trap. But the problem was the crowd already beat her to it, and by that point, there was no way for her to push through. Now, once all the other exits were lost, aiming for the bushes wasn't going to work here, and neither was jumping into the 2-foot-deep fountain at the bottom. But the elevator shaft was logically the most stable part of the tower, so with no other choice, the best strategy would have been to quickly find some curtains or tablecloths that she could tie around her body like a harness, and then use the service ladder or the guide rails to start slowly working her way down a few feet at a time. Even the simple act of getting off the restaurant platform would have helped her chances of survival, but as we're about to see, surviving this was actually the worst thing that she could have done. Later that night, Stefani wakes up screaming again from the nightmare. It turns out that Iris is still alive, and she's actually the girl's estranged grandmother. She's been having the same dream about the tower every night, and fed up, she decides that it's time to go home for some investigating, but nothing could ever prepare her for what she's about to find. Arriving back in the old neighborhood, she's greeted by her father, Marty, and brother, Charlie, but the kid doesn't seem very happy to see her. He was just leaving to go hang out with their cousins, and since her dad won't offer any hints about grandma, she decides to give her brother a ride, hoping to try her luck with them instead. She finds her Aunt Brenda and Uncle Howard in the kitchen, but when she brings up the nightmare, everything about their mood suddenly changes. Her uncle completely refuses to talk about his mother, insisting that she lost her mind after their father's death, but seeing how desperate she is, her aunt quietly mentions that she'll find what she's looking for inside a cabinet in the dining room. Checking inside, she finds a box full of old postcards, leading her to the woman's isolated cabin somewhere deep in the mountains. The old lady immediately tells her to get the out of here, but her attitude quickly changes when she realizes that it's one of her grandkids. And after telling the girl to leave her belongings in a box outside the perimeter, she remotely opens the gate to let her inside. The woman shouts at Steph here not to move a muscle, insisting on doing everything according to her own plans. When she hears about the nightmares, she begins telling the story of what really happened that day, explaining how she actually predicted the future and ended up saving everyone's lives. The thing is, they were all supposed to die that day, and ever since then, death has been steadily picking them off one at a time. By sealing herself inside the cabin, she was able to survive for as long as she could, but she's recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer, meaning that it's only a matter of time before she meets her maker. Now, over the years, she's been jotting down all of her premonitions into a journal that would make the Zodiac Killer look sane by comparison, and with her inevitable death approaching, she wants to pass it on to Steph here before it's too late. Of course, the girl thinks that she's crazy and decides that it's time to get the hell out of there, but the woman chases her out to the yard, knowing that she's already as good as dead. Handing her the book, she warns the girl to get ready because the proof train is about to roll into the station. And all of a sudden, that's when the weather vane falls on the roof, hitting a fire extinguisher and rocketing across the yard like a spear straight through the woman's face, making one family member down with 7 more to go. Alright, I can understand why she'd be skeptical at first, but I'm gonna go ahead and call that concrete proof. Now, Granny here just made a big mistake by getting herself killed, and here's why. Obviously, she couldn't let Steph here leave without giving her the book because this might have been her last chance to ever see her, but that was no reason to throw her life away. Even if she's eventually going to die, every minute that she's still alive gives her family more time to prepare, and that's why, instead, she should have brought Stephanie here up to speed a little more slowly. Granny hardly let the girl get 3 words in before she jumped into her whole story about death prophecies and apocalyptic visions. That's a lot of crazy to dump on somebody all at once and expect them to trust you, but with that being said, the girl came to her looking for answers, so the key here would have been to give her the old Morpheus treatment, from the Matrix, and let Steph decide if she wants to know how deep the rabbit hole goes. You know what I mean? Think of it like this, right? You let her tell the story about the dream and then ask if she's sure that she wants to know the truth, because this makes it feel like her choice to keep pursuing the information, making her more personally invested and likely to believe the story. Then Granny could have stayed at the cabin and served as her mentor while Steph here got the training she needed to keep their family safe. The biggest problem now is that she has no idea who Death's going to come for next, but maybe there's a way that she can figure it out. During the recurring nightmares that she's been having, Iris has her premonition shortly after pricking her finger on her boyfriend's rose. Now, if you remember back from Final Destination, 5? Sam also had his premonition shortly after pricking his finger on a piece of metal. So there must be some kind of connection here. Of course, Steph has no way of knowing what happened with Sam, but she does know what happens in her dream, and she's been watching it over and over again every night, giving her plenty of time to study the details. So if she wants to see the future like her grandma, then she needs to recreate the events that helped her do it in the past. If I were Steph here, I'd start by carrying around a safety pin in her pocket, and whenever she senses death coming, she can use it to prick her finger. With any luck, this might give her another premonition, allowing her to stop the next disaster before it happens. Now, the next logical question is, how will she know when it's coming? But just like in the dream, death always foreshadows what's about to happen in ironic ways. So if she notices anybody doing dangerous activities, she finds herself near any sketchily placed objects, or even hears a suspiciously iconic song on the radio, she needs to act quickly, trigger a premonition, and see if death is on the way. Her grandmother was living proof that it could be beaten. You just have to always be on your toes. So, like the old lady said, when the universe speaks, you pay attention. But Steph here is going to have to learn that the hard way. While attending her grandmother's funeral, Steph notices an old RV pulling into the cemetery. It's her estranged mother, Darlene, who she hasn't spoken to in years, and the girl still can't forgive her for leaving the family behind. Back at home, Steph's typing out an email to her professor when she remembers her grandmother's book, and as crazy as it sounds, she can't shake the feeling that something terrible is about to happen. Meanwhile, at the cousins, they're all in the backyard doing a bunch of totally safe tasks as they set up for a good old-fashioned family barbecue. It looks like a peaceful suburban afternoon, but that's when her cousin Bobby here accidentally shatters a glass on the bar, and as they're cleaning it up, they don't realize that a broken piece fell into the ice. Darlene arrives a few minutes later with a fresh batch of homemade cookies, but by now, Death is already setting them up for another kill. As soon as Charlie takes a bite, he realizes that the cookies were made with peanuts, but she forgot that cousin Bobby here has a deadly allergy to peanuts. It's a close call, but the good news is that they caught it before anything bad happened. Or at least that's what they think. Now that everyone's there, Bobby pours them all a drink from the bar, not realizing that one of them contains the shard of broken glass. His dad steps up and says a few words in memory of their grandma, reminding everyone how important it is to spend time with your family because you just never know when they might die in some kind of horrific freak accident. And boy, if he only knew just how accurate that was about to be. A moment later, cousin Julia here starts choking, but it's just a bug that flew into her drink, so it looks like she's safe for now. Her brother Eric keeps trying to fire up the grill, letting it fill up with too much gas before accidentally setting off a huge fireball. But once again, he escapes unharmed. There's no telling when death is going to strike, and back at home, Steph gets so freaked out after looking through her grandma's book that she finally decides to warn the others, but by now, they're all too busy to pick up the phone. It turns out that the broken glass is in her dad's drink, but he's saved at the last second when they all start cheering for Uncle Howard to get on the trampoline. He's just about to throw a backflip when his sister shouts at them to stop, going over to pick up a rake that was hidden in the grass underneath. It seems like a bit of an overreaction to everyone else, but she has no idea that this decision is about to get somebody killed. Just then, Aunt Brenda carelessly sets down a bowl of fruit kebabs, knocking over this bottle of beer. The beer then activates the garden hose, slowly filling it up with water just as Stephanie pulls in the driveway. The moment she rushes into the backyard, Bobby accidentally falls through the trampoline, causing Julia to knock over the Jenga tower, which then knocks over the drink with the broken glass. All of a sudden, her Uncle Howard steps barefooted right onto the glass, and as he hobbles backward in pain, the garden hose knocks over the rake, activating the lawnmower just as he trips straight into its path. And in a split second, the man's head is turned into mulch right before their very eyes. That makes 2 down with 6 more to go. Okay, hey everybody, come check out Uncle Howard's new haircut. Too soon? Too soon. Yeah, hey, this is exactly what Granny told Steph to watch out for, but the trick is that you always have to stay 1 step ahead. Like, if Death really wanted to start playing dirty, then it could easily take them out with an aneurysm or something, like Hal's mom in The Monkey, right? But this version of Death likes to play with its food first, and as horrifying as that may be, it means that you have opportunities before Death strikes to catch on and try to counter whatever it's about to do. If we break down the sequence of events that led to the man's death, it all started when Bobby here accidentally shattered a glass on the bar, causing the broken piece to fall into the ice. Now, in any real-life bar or restaurant, if glass breaks anywhere near the ice well or prep area, they immediately throw it all out for this exact reason. The tiny fragments can be impossible to see in a full bin of ice, and even microscopic shards can cause serious internal injuries if accidentally consumed. So, the first step to saving Howard's life would have been scooping out all the ice and thoroughly cleaning the area before they served any more drinks. That was mistake number one, and the second factor contributing to his death, but what ultimately killed him was the electric lawnmower. And this also should have been easy to avoid, because most electric lawnmowers run on a removable battery pack and can't operate unless the battery is properly locked in, so it's always recommended to remove the battery when the mower isn't in use. But with that being said, there may have been someone else who could have stopped this, and that would have been Steph's mother, Darlene. As we learn later, Grandma told her daughter about the death curse just like Steph, which is why she grabbed the rake and seemed so on edge the entire time. Over the years, she's partially started to believe that her mother was crazy just like everyone else, but after the woman died in a so-called freak accident, just like she predicted, that should have been proof that her stories were true like all along. If Darlene had been trusting her intuition instead of doubting it, then she might have been able to stop this from happening. But now, it's only a matter of time before death strikes again. After another trip to the graveyard, Steph decides to start taking her grandmother's warning a little bit more seriously, and flipping through the book, she finds a note about someone named JB who apparently knows someone who survived. Now she just has to find this mysterious JB, but as she digs through the book looking for answers, she makes a game-changing discovery. Gathering everyone together, she explains that Iris was keeping track of the survivors from the prevented Skyview disaster, and every single one of them ended up dying in some kind of horrific accident several years later, even going out in the exact same order as she predicted during her vision. Those people weren't supposed to live, so their kids were never supposed to be born, which means that now everyone in this room besides her dad and Aunt Brenda is on the chopping block. And with Grandma Iris out of the picture, there's nobody left to stop it. According to her, death comes for them by order of age, meaning that her cousin Eric should be up next, followed by his two siblings before it makes its way to her side of the family. Of course, this is all way too crazy for everyone else to believe, and they all storm out of the house thinking that Steph here must have gone off the deep end, but it won't be much longer before they get their proof. Later that night, Eric here is working late at the tattoo shop and his boss leaves him to close the place up by himself. He's blasting some heavy metal when he gets a text from his cousin who's been blowing up his phone non-stop. This makes him think of his dad again, and switching over to a sad boy playlist, instead he decides to tattoo his arm in his father's memory, never realizing that another freak accident is already building up. Just as he finishes the tattoo, the bass in the song hits, causing a Grim Reaper bobblehead to fall off the speaker and setting off a chain of events with a glass jar full of needles. As he goes to check it out, he accidentally knocks over a jug of rubbing alcohol, and the flammable liquid starts pouring out all over the ground. While he's picking up the pieces, a chain on the ceiling suddenly comes loose, and it happens to hook right into Eric's nose ring as it starts wrapping around the ceiling fan. Struggling to get free, he ends up in more and more precarious positions as it slowly pulls him towards the ceiling by his nose. And in the scuffle, he accidentally knocks over the lamp, causing the puddle of alcohol to go up in flames. Finally, he's able to get himself free just as the fan gives out, crashing straight down into the pool of flames and broken glass as the fire grows even larger. And for the moment, it looks like Stephanie's predictions just came true. Alrighty then. Well, I guess Death wasn't a fan of our boy Eric here, am I right? He probably should have listened to his cousin before he ended up tattooed and barbecued, because if he'd actually believed her when she said that death was coming, then there would have been an easy way to avoid this entire situation. Bro was in such a hurry to close up that he didn't even properly secure the lid on that bottle of rubbing alcohol, and that might not seem like a big deal, but after not one, but two freak accidents just took out his family members back to back, he shouldn't be taking any chances, even if he still didn't believe that anything supernatural was going on. Now, when the chain from the ceiling hooked onto his nose, he began to panic and couldn't unhook the ring until it already lifted him several feet above the ground. But even if he wasn't able to get out in time, that area of the nose consists mostly of thin cartilage and soft tissue, and the hook would have ripped straight through as soon as it was bearing his full body weight. So as painful as it would have been, it's a survivable injury, but there might have been a way for him to escape even faster. Ceiling fans, they're just not designed to hold up a full-grown adult, so once he realized that unhooking his nose was taking too long, he could have wrapped the chain around his arms and used his whole body to pull down and to the side as hard as he could, hoping to pull the whole fan straight out of the ceiling. Of course, he'd have to dive out of the way so it wouldn't hit him as it came down, but every single one of these, accidents is like a chess match with death, so you have to see how all the pieces come together. And then you have to make the best decisions you can with the options that you have. Now, as for Steph, she might have failed to convince the others, but that's no reason to just give up so easily. If she knew that death was coming for Eric, then she should have just been protecting him whether he wanted it or not. After they left the house, I would have started tailing Eric throughout the whole day while studying up from the book so I'd be prepared for any potential threats. As soon as she noticed death rearing its ugly head, she could have swooped in to save him at the last second, and then maybe they'd all start taking this a bit more seriously. Now, with Eric out of the picture, that means his sister Julia should be up next, but in the morning, they're gonna be in for a big surprise. The next morning, Steph goes to wake up her brother, worried that they haven't heard from Eric since last night. Rushing over to their house, her brother reads a text saying that the tattoo parlor burned down, and she's so distracted that she almost crashes right into a pedestrian crossing the road. It's their cousin Eric, casually sipping on a juice box as if there's absolutely nothing wrong, and they're both relieved to see that he's still alive. It turns out that he survived thanks to his leather jacket, but Stephanie here still can't believe that he actually escaped the cycle. Laughing, he backs up into the street saying that she's crazy, only to get almost obliterated by a delivery truck doing 200 miles per hour through the residential neighborhood. But once again, he evades death by mere fractions of a second. The confidence is starting to go to his head when a garbage truck comes pulling down the street, and chasing after him, the girl worries that a freak accident could still happen at any time. Looking around, she points out how a bunch of seemingly harmless activities could easily spiral out of control if just one thing goes wrong. But he still absolutely refuses to hear her out. As a matter of fact, he's so confident that he starts getting a little freaky with the garbage truck just to prove his point, and sure enough, it pulls away without any trouble. But that's when everything goes horribly wrong. A moment later, his sister Julia sets out for a jog around the neighborhood when all of a sudden a tree trimmer knocks over this guy with a leaf blower, causing him to spray a bunch of leaves in the kid's face, who then kicks a soccer ball, which nails Julia square in the dome and sends her tumbling headfirst into the trash can just as the robotic arm dumps her into the compactor. Seeing this happen, her cousins immediately start chasing the truck down the block, hoping to save the girl's life before it's too late. While Stephanie grabs onto the ladder and starts climbing towards the opening, Eric and Charlie try getting the driver to pull over, but he's too busy swiping on dating apps and jamming out to Kelly Clarkson to notice. They finally manage to get in front of him just as Stephanie reaches for the girl's arm, but she loses her grip when the driver slams on the brakes. And there's nothing that she can do as her cousin is brutally crushed to death in the most horrific way imaginable. That makes 3 down with 5 more to go. Now, after what happened, there's absolutely no denying that Steph was onto something, but now she's starting to doubt herself for getting the order wrong. That's when Aunt Brenda finally speaks up, revealing that the order was correct after all, because her son Eric here has been living a damn lie. It turns out that she actually had an affair with one of the neighbors, so Uncle Lawnmower wasn't even Eric's real dad, meaning that he's safe because he's got no blood relation to Grandma Iris. This is troubling news for Eric here, who's also finding this out for the first time, but more importantly, it means that his little brother Bobby is up next. Okay, well, that was awkward, but at least now Eric knows that he's off the list, and now that they're finally on the same page, the family can start working together to keep the next target safe. Now, every target they're able to keep alive gives them more time to work out a plan, so with that being said, maybe there was a way that they could have rescued Julia here? This type of garbage truck is called an automated side loader, and it uses a robotic arm with controls located inside the cab. Sometimes these trucks also have a control panel on the outside that's used for maintenance, and the panel almost always has an emergency stop button to disable the hydraulics. So if Steph had known to look out for this, she might have found the button near the ladder and been able to shut down the compactor before her own cousin got squished. As for the other two, they should have split up to achieve different tasks instead of running right next to each other. Since they were approaching a curve in the road, Charlie should have cut across the lawns on the other side of the street to get in front of the truck sooner. Meanwhile, Eric could have climbed onto the cab and started banging on the window. I'd even tried the door handle because with any luck, it might have been unlocked, and once inside the cab, he'd have full control to shut everything down. It's too late to save cousin Julia, but now that they all believe Steph, and she has a proven talent for seeing these things happen before they happen, they can start preparing themselves for when it comes for Bobby next. The key to survival here is going to be using Grandma's Book of Visions to their advantage. Over the years, she wrote down every premonition that she had, giving them a comprehensive list of all the dangers that they might run into. So what they need to do now is start categorizing the dangers by location, like street, yard, hospital, whatever else, and write down copies onto note cards that everyone can carry with them as a sort of quick reference guide, allowing them to call out threats anywhere they happen to be. This way, they can all work as a team to keep Bobby here alive and use the extra time to look for a more permanent solution. Terrified, Bobby here immediately starts looking for Steph for some help, and her brother Charlie points out that she was right about everything that happened leading up to the accident. She explains that their grandmother's book is sort of like a strategy guide for cheating death, so if she can figure out how it all comes together, then she might find a way to break the curse. They also have a lead with this guy JB, but she still hasn't figured out who the hell he even is yet. That's when her mother chimes in saying that she remembers the name, and they quickly figure out that he was a friend of their grandma's who works at a hospital somewhere nearby. Grabbing their stuff, Stephanie's family decides to go track the man down, but Bobby here is terrified of being left on his own, so they eventually agree to let him tag along. They're just about to get in the RV when Eric comes storming out of the house, reminding them that his brother still has a deadly nut allergy. And sure enough, he finds a jar of peanut butter in the cabinet, deciding that he better stay with them too. The gang arrives at the hospital where they find the mysterious JB, who turns out to be none other than William John Bloodworth. He already knows exactly why they came to see him before they've even said a word, and confused, the girl asks him to explain. It turns out that he was one of the people who Iris saved at the Skyview, and in her vision, he was the last one to die. Many years after the prevented disaster, the two of them ended up reconnecting, and they helped keep each other alive until death finally caught up with her. Now, according to JB here, there are only two ways for them to stop what's about to happen. First, if Bobby kills someone else instead, then he gets however much time they had left added to his lifespan. But if he really wants to escape the curse, then the only way for him is to die. Years ago, he says that a girl named Kimberly was brought back to life after she flatlined, allowing her to break the cycle, but he warns them that trying it for themselves could lead to even worse results. If you ask him, they might as well just give up and accept the inevitable, and with that, he leaves them to go enjoy the rest of his life, knowing that he'll be dead as soon as it's finished with them. Alrighty then. That wasn't exactly a reassuring conversation, but at least now they have a better idea of what they're really up against. JB here says that Bobby's only options are to either kill someone and take the time they have left, or somehow find a way to stop his heart and bring him back to life, but neither of these seems like a good situation. First off, any target who they can argue deserves it from a moral standpoint would have to be someone like a death row inmate, making them borderline impossible to access. And there's no way to tell how much time it would actually add to his lifespan, if anything. On the other hand, you could argue that he has nothing to lose by trying the die and revive approach, but Grandma Iris is proof that Bobby here could still have another 60 years in him if he's able to evade death. That's why if it were me, I'm going with option C, and that's bringing Bobby here back to the cabin. It's already been proven that the cabin is a controlled enough environment for Bobby to stay alive as long as he keeps an eye out for death at all times, but unlike his Grandma Iris, he wouldn't have to do it alone. At this point in the game, everyone in the family understands that death is really after them, but only those of them with a blood relation to Iris are really in danger. Plus, we know that death will stay focused on its current target before moving on, so everyone else is technically safe as long as Bobby here stays alive. That makes them sorta like meat shields that don't have to worry as much about being harmed until their name is next on the list, and Eric already took advantage of this when he went into the RV to check for peanut butter. But there are two more vital players that they're currently leaving on the bench. Steph's Aunt Brenda and her father Marty are both technically safe because they're not directly related to Iris. Now, interestingly enough, studies have shown that a mother's amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection, actually grows shortly after their baby is born, making them much more sensitive to dangers in their environment. And even fathers, like Marty here, who've taken on the role of primary caregivers, also show similar changes. Now, Steph's father might be a little harder to convince, but her Aunt Brenda already believes them, and as Bobby's biological mother, this makes her the perfect person to act as his bodyguard, because other than Steph, she'll be the most likely to notice any threats before death strikes. Instead of trying anything too desperate, I'd relocate Bobby to the cabin for now, while the whole family works together to keep him safe and use that time to search for any ways to break the curse. Unsatisfied with the answer, Stephanie here starts digging through the man's desk in search of another idea, but her cousin Eric is convinced that it's the only way. Pulling his brother aside, he starts giving Bobby a pep talk to get him ready. Meanwhile, Steph and her mother are debating if they have any other options, but by the time that they've turned around from their big group hug, their two cousins have already disappeared. Deciding that they have nothing to lose by trying, they set off through the hospital until they find a vending machine, where Bobby picks out some chocolate peanut butter cups for his last meal. Their plan is to use his nut allergy to stop his heart and then quickly alert the doctors so that they can bring him back. As the machine spins forward, the candy ends up stuck against the coil, and Eric puts a tiny hole in the glass out of pure frustration. He finally gets it to drop by tilting the entire machine and grabbing the candy, and then they hustle into the nearby MRI room, not realizing that death is already preparing its next trap. As Eric leaves to grab a wheelchair, the impact of the door causes a clipboard to jump off of the wall, accidentally activating the MRI machine. Bobby here quickly notices the tunnel lighting up, but he's too terrified to even move one step without his brother around. When he gets back, he tells Bobby to hand over his EpiPen, so there's no chance of him panicking and trying to use it. They're both so distracted that they don't notice the machine drawing more and more power, but now it's time for Bobby here to finally taste some nuts. Opening the package, he nervously grabs one of the peanut butter cups and takes a bite, but to their surprise, absolutely nothing happens. For a moment, it looks like he might have outgrown his allergy, but then a few seconds later, everything changes as his throat starts closing up. Panicking, he lunges for the EpiPen, but at the same time, the magnetic pull of the machine suddenly rips the phone right out of Eric's hand, and it just so happens to land square on the button that triggers the manual override. All of a sudden, the machine cranks up to maximum power as Eric's piercings are ripped right out of his face, and the wheelchair flies across the room, pinning him against the tunnel. As the magnet keeps getting stronger and stronger, it pulls the metal pieces of the wheelchair through his stomach until finally he's completely ripped in half as he's dragged into the machine. Fighting for his life, Bobby saves himself with the EpiPen, just as a nurse notices that something is wrong. But the moment that she opens the door, the metal coil from the broken vending machine rockets across the hall, piercing Bobby straight through the head as it corkscrews him into the machine, making 5 down with 3 more to go. Man, this gives getting screwed over a whole new meaning. I guess poor Paco the turtle just became an orphan, and the worst part is it never really had to end this way. But by trying to cheat death, all they did was set him up for a double kill. So sorry boys, but it looks like you just f***ed up. I mean, I could be wrong here, but I thought the whole point of this trip was to keep each other alive. But in the span of one conversation with a guy who you just met, you went from protect Bobby at all costs to we need to kill Bobby right now. And with family members like that, who even needs death to get involved? What's crazy is that it seems like you were just starting to make some real progress. I mean, you had the whole group on the same page, everyone believed the curse was real, and they were all heavily invested in keeping Bobby safe. So tell me why, only 5 minutes later, you immediately forgot everything you'd learned and decided to start making the absolute worst decisions possible, one right after another. Splitting up from the group? Yeah. Terrible idea, especially when Steph can literally see the damn future. Messing with a vending machine? Terrible idea. Those things kill more people a year than sharks. Ignoring an activated MRI machine when you're fully aware that death itself is setting up a complicated mousetrap-style execution sequence with your name on the list? Terrible idea. And I'd say that's pretty obvious based on what just happened. And to think, all this when you had a perfectly death-proof cabin just a short drive away. Maybe next time you should actually try discussing your options with the group first before blindly rushing into the worst strategy possible. But it looks like there isn't going to be a next time. And now that's one half of the bloodline completely erased from history, so sorry fellas, but all that I can say is that you two just f***ed up. After saying goodbye to yet another 2 relatives, it looks like Stephanie's side of the family is officially up next, and their mother Darlene knows that she's first on the list. They need somewhere safe to hide out, and that's when Steph remembers her grandmother's cabin. As long as their mother is still alive, she knows that the kids are gonna be safe, so she volunteers to isolate herself if that's what it's gonna take. The only problem is, Death won't let her make it there in one piece, but Stephanie here seems to share her grandmother's visions, so they decide that it's best to stick together for now. After a nerve-wracking trip inside the countryside, they finally arrive outside the woman's cabin, but to get inside, they have to get past the giant automated gate. Steph's spidey senses are already warning her that they'll be dead as soon as they set foot outside the RV, and with no other choice, she decides that their only option is to back it up and floor it straight through to the other side. In the chaos, a flashlight ends up falling from the shelf and jamming Stephanie's seatbelt. Realizing that she's stuck, she tells the others to hurry inside, knowing that it's the only way they'll all be safe. But that's when a flaming ember from one of the sparkling lights drifts directly into a cloud of gas, causing the entire cabin to blow up in a massive explosion. The force of the blast sends the RV tumbling into a nearby pond, leaving Stephanie trapped underwater as she struggles to get out. Meanwhile, her brother is stuck under a burning log, but their mother crawls out of the flames and sets him free. Telling him to go rescue Stephanie, she promises to buy them as much time as she can, but before she can even finish her sentence, she's absolutely obliterated by a falling light pole, making 6 down with just 2 more to go. There's no time to mourn as Charlie climbs into the RV and starts pulling out the seatbelt, but there's nothing that he can do to get it loose. Searching around, he eventually finds a pocket knife and starts chopping at the belt, but it's too late, and his sister backs out before he can even save her. A few minutes later, the girl wakes up back on dry land, realizing that he managed to save her life after all. Now that she's died and come back, it looks like the curse is broken, or at least that's what she thinks. But Death still has a few tricks up its sleeve. Sometime later, Steph and her family are living happily ever after, and today she has the honor of seeing her brother off to his senior prom. They're waiting outside for his date when Steph pricks her finger on his rose, and suddenly her memories of the curse start to come back. Meanwhile, across the street, the old lady goes up to a lemonade stand and accidentally drops the very same penny that was supposed to kill Iris all those years ago. As chance would have it, the coin rolls perfectly all the way down the block and ends up wedged in between the switch rails just as the speeding freight train comes barreling down the tracks. At the same time, the date's father comes out to introduce himself. He's a doctor, and after hearing what happened to Steph, he explains that she was never really dead. If CPR brought her back to life, then she was just knocked out. All of a sudden, the reality hits her that the curse is still on, and at that very moment, the train flies off the tracks and comes barreling down the street straight towards them. Running for their lives, they're able to escape the devastation by only fractions of an inch. But just when it looks like they made it, 2 huge logs come flying out of the wreckage and pulverize them both into a bloody paste. That makes all 8 family members down with no survivors, and it looks like Death always gets what it's after in the end. Final Destination Bloodlines. Not necessarily the legacy sequel that we asked for, but definitely the one we deserved. Hats off to everyone involved. It was so cool seeing Tony Todd in his last on-screen role. I love how they actually extended the concept of a legacy sequel to like fit the characters, and that there's a grandma, there's generations of people. You know, that was a nice take. The gorehounds, we eating good this summer, man. Final Destination Bloodlines, did you f with it or not? And I'm sure there's some things that we glossed over in this episode that you could fill me in the comments about what we could have done differently. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We will see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.